Hello guys, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto what if. What if Naruto had to choose between the Hokage title or the girl killing his child? If you enjoy this video then please like, share and do comment and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creations. So let us start the story.
There was a solemn silence over the room as the people entered. A few of the village's top Junin, such as Sarutobi Asuma and Hitaki Kakashi entered. Also entering were all of the clan leaders of the village, from the Hyuga to the Akamichi to the lesser clans of Kishimoto and Tanizaka. Following them into the room was the members of the civilian council. Finally into the room lumbered in the toad sage Jiraiya, who was being exceptionally quiet. But all understood the reason for his silence, and said nothing of it. Already in the room were the three elders who advised Sarutobi personally, his teammates Homura and Kaharu and his rival Danzo. In the room, over 30 people gathered to make one of the hardest decisions of their life. Kaharu took lead once everyone was seated. Hello, fellow shinobi and council members. As you all understand, today we called this meeting forward to try and decided who shall become the Godem Hokage. She was interrupted by a loud sigh by one of the younger council members. She turned her attention to him. Do you have something to say, Councilman Harada? Harada looked embarrassed, but decided to say what he was thinking. Why can't this council simply run the village instead of electing a cage? We in the civilian council run the affairs quite effectively in this format, so why shouldn't we run the village as such? Kaharu looked at the council member almost pitifully. I am afraid you do not understand what exactly the Hokage does for this village besides leads the shinobi, counselor. His role is much too intensive and demanding to be run by this council. Homura continued, the Hokage also assigns missions to all shinobi, must act as the commander of the shinobi in times of war, is the person who singularly represents this village to all other nations, and is the idol of our people. A council cannot replace that. The council member began to slowly shake his head. If you say so, but why can't they simply be a figurehead, and we have the control? Let them act the part, while we do the hard work? Danzo raised his eyebrow at that thought, but no one noticed his reaction. They were more focused on Homura. Your naivete continues to show, Harada. The Hokage makes some of the most difficult decisions possible for this village, and often needs to be immediate actions. No meetings, no debates, no votes, but a split-second decision that can rest on his shoulders alone. The other cages would smell blood if they realized that the Hokage was a facade. Kaharu finished up the discussion. And above that, the Hokage is a full-time position, and so would the council. It would be illogical to remove over 24 top shinobi from the field, or away from the duties of their clan, or you from your duties on the civilian council. A Hokage is the only option possible in this world we live in. As such, let us get down to business. It is now time for nominations to be made and deliberated. She looked over the large council. Now, are there any nominations to be made? I nominate Uzumaki Naruto to fill the position the Godem Hokage. This one sentence stopped the council cold in its tracks, killing the discussion over whom to nominate before it began. It was not simply the person being nominated, but the man who was nominating him. A stunned silence took over the room as the words sunk in. After a minute of silence, a civilian council member was the first to speak. You want the Kyuubi to run the village? People surrounding him began to nod. Another civilian council member spoke up. Forget the demon in him, he's barely 13. How in the hell could he possibly be fit to lead a mission? Let alone a whole village. A third stood up and spoke. For God's sake, he is a genin. And barely one at that. Making him Hokage is insane. What are you thinking? Finally, a fourth council member shook her head. Have you gone mad? The rest of the civilian council member nodded in agreement to the final council member, while the Junins, clan heads, and elders stayed silent as they tried to rationalize this nomination. Even Jiraiya was temporarily speechless at his student being nominated for the position he feared he would be stuck with. He quickly recovered, however, and spoke up. What are you playing at Danzo? He eyed him suspiciously. Why would he nominate Naruto of all people? Everyone knew Danzo wished to be Hokage. It was not a secret to a person in the room, so why nominate someone else? Are you trying to weaken the field of candidates by making outlandish nominations, so you may slip in as Hokage? Danzo, to his credit, did not flinch. He looked at Jiraiya with his unbandaged eye and smirked. That is an interesting thought, Gama-sanin, but it is not my intention. There is nothing outlandish in my words. I honestly nominate Uzumaki to be the next Hokage of this village. People were still trying to rationalize it, when Nara Shikaku spoke up and asked the question everyone wondered. Why? Why him, Danzo? All eyes focused on Danzo as he was expected to explain. He acquiesced. To your point, Councilman Taniguchi, even you should realize he is no demon. He fought off the one-tailed Bu Shukaku with no hesitation, instead of joining him in its destruction. He is simply its container, the force stopping the demon from destroying us. As long as he lives, the Kyuubi is held back. He is someone to be respected. The shinobi of the room were surprised at Danzo's words, as they did not think it fit his philosophy. Danzo continued to answer his critics. As for his age, I should say it does not matter in the grand scheme. The traitor Uchiha led Anbu at his age. Hitaki Kakashi was leading the first major strike of the Third Shinobi World War at that age. Why can't a 13-year-old be Hokage? Age is not what matters, but what one does. Finally, a tall Junin interrupted him. They were prodigies while Uzumaki was a dead last. If we use your logic, why don't we put Uchiha Sasuke as Hokage? He is a prodigy, and has much talent already. Danzo waved him off. What do you call mastering the Junin-level technique Shadow Clone Jutsu by oneself, within a space of a few hours? Or having the capabilities of eluding our Chunin and Junin at the age of 10 when he was playing his pranks? Or being able to summon the boss of the Toad contract on 2 separate occasions? His abilities are very raw, but we can develop them into the strongest shinobi the village and the whole world has ever seen, and make him truly a great Hokage. A few, like Jiraiya, Shikaku, and Aburame Shibi saw what was going on at that moment with the little slip of the tongue. Danzo knew he wasn't likely to be nominated. It was obvious that he had too many objections and his controlling nature lent the fact that he was using a ninja he could manipulate to his will. Jiraiya spoke up again. Kakashi and I are training him currently, and know him best. I think we can both safely say that he is not yet ready mentally to be Hokage. He is still too trusting, and lacks many of the social graces needed to fill the position. It will take years before he can mentally perform the duties of Hokage, let alone be strong enough to be considered for the role. Kakashi gave a slight nod in admission. Danzo's gaze fell upon the Sannin, and he looked back. Eventually, Danzo spoke. Maybe, or maybe not. I think that much of the training needed could be accomplished within a short time if he were to realize the ability of the Shadow Clone Jutsu he uses so readily. One of the civilian council members was curious. What do you mean? Danzo sighed. It is a shame his progress has been limited by his senseis not showing him such. A clone will gain the memories of what they experienced. I assume the boy has not realized this yet since he uses them to overwhelm his enemies and let them be quickly defeated, thus gaining not enough experience to register in his mind. Kakashi was quick to defend himself. While this is true, I was worried about the side effects gaining knowledge in such a way. In a young teenager such as Naruto, his mind is still developing, and thus could cause dangerous mental strain on him. No one Naruto's age, without years of conditioning to deal with such strain, had ever learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and thus we would not know the effects it may have. Jiraiya nodded. I had similar fears. Also, my training with him has mainly dealt with individual chakra control and the summoning jutsu. Both required concentration and steady chakra, which would have been disrupted had he used shadow clones. Danzo appeared to ponder this for a moment, and slowly began to nod. I see. Your fears, Kakashi, and your reasoning, Jiraiya, does make sense. However, I think it would be for the best for him to start training in such a manner, so he will quickly live up to his title of Hokage. His strength could grow quickly, and he could learn everything he needs to learn from the elite, so that he may take the mantle of the Hokage. While we the Elder Council guide him, he can train his abilities to reach their full potential. A few ninjas began to suspect a political coup in the works, when the council took over and had the Hokage in waiting never take charge. Or simply killed. Those who felt like that began to eye Danzo even more suspiciously. The civilian council members narrowed their eyes. Harada spoke up again. Why are you so sure we will allow such a thing? Even if you are right about his container status, he is too much of a risk mentally to hold such power, as his senseis have remarked. He is still only 13. At 13, I was not fit to lead my household, let alone the village. Could we please move on to a legitimate nomination, if this council will not do? Danzo stared at the woman who just spoke. This is quite legitimate. I believe he is quite able to perform such tasks, with the help of the council, the elders, and his senseis until he is independent enough. Finally Hyuga Hiyashi spoke. You mean you want a willing puppet, and the boy who screams out that he will be Hokage is the perfect puppet to pull the strings with. And independent as long as he depends on your ideas. Many of the shinobi in the room began to nod, happy that the suspected truth was out in the open. Danzo looked at the Hyuga clan head. I will admit I want to influence the decisions of our village, but only for the best. I wish to seek the survival of Konohagakure, and this boy has shown a willingness to protect the entirety of the village, which I respect tremendously. He turned his attention to the entirety of the council. Honestly, I wish nothing more to lead my village to glory. But many accuse me of being a war hawk, and thus unfit to rule a peaceful village. Yes, a peaceful village that just was invaded. And others say my physical capabilities show weakness. While I disagree vehemently against the first charge, in light of recent events, I respect the logic of the second tremendously. If the Hokage is not fit, then how can one suspect its village to be so? So, I am doing the next best thing, and putting someone who I think would be able to do whatever is needed for the village to succeed is just that. He has the power of the most powerful force in the world within him, and will be able to defend his village with that power. If you think about it, he is perfect for the role. He is young, malleable enough to train properly, fiercely loyal, powerful, and has the desire to prove himself. He is not the right choice for today, but if we let him grow into the role, he will be the perfect choice to rule the village. We will groom him as such. And if he is somehow too weak to be the Hokage this village needs when it is time, he will be weak enough to remove from office and replace with a worthy shinobi. It is a win-win situation for the village. Many looked at the man with great suspicion, but unsure of how to best counter his still far-fetched claims. A council member was the first to try. Would it not be safer to have a strong Hokage now, instead of hoping to have one in the future? Danzo shook his head. We must look at the future for the role of Hokage. A good Hokage no means nothing if they pass on in a few years, and we must begin the search all over again. And though the Hokage will not be strong, this council will help lead the way until the day he becomes strong. A clan head of one of the minor clans spoke up next. Why not choose another strong, young shinobi then? If you must seek from the youth, why not at the Nara heir, who is the only one fit to become a Chunin? Or Uchiha Sasuke, who is beloved and strong already? Nara Shikaku, shockingly, spoke up. My son would never take the role. He would see it as too troublesome. And the Uchiha? He stopped, trying to think how to best phrase this. He is very much like Danzo here, a great warrior in mind, but lacking in some area to take the role. Danzo lacks in image, the Uchiha lacks in his vengeance. We all know of how his clan was massacred, and how he wishes to kill his brother who did it. Until that day occurs, his focus will be on that goal. He would focus the powers of the Hokage against that one man, and could potentially destroy his village. And afterwards, if he beats his brother, he wishes to resurrect the Uchiha clan and become its head. He will not be in the right place mentally to be Hokage. No, the Uchiha can never take the mantle. Danzo spoke up. Very few want to be Hokage. The hat is quite heavy, the pressure too much for many. In this village, I know of only 3 people who would earnestly want this job. Myself, which cannot come to pass, the grandson of the Sandrine, who has not even entered the academy, or Uzumaki Naruto. By default, he can be the only one that takes up its mantle. Hyuga Hiyashi rose up. I would be willing to take the mantle. Do not think so quickly that only the loudest want to lead. And I am sure other worthy shinobi would as well. Slowly, he gestured to the crowd, waiting for another champion to stand up. He stared at a few he thought that would. Jiraiya shook his head. I was never meant for that chair, and I am too vital for our spy networks to run the office. Nara Shikaku began to shake his head. The paperwork, way too troublesome. And I doubt many would want a Hokage who is afraid of his wife. A few chuckled at the comment, as they knew of Yoshino's temper and Shikaku's concern. Hitaki Kakashi shook his head. I do not want this job. I saw what it comprised of with sensei, and it really isn't my cup of tea. Finally, Sarutobi Asuma shook his head. Dad once told me that I shouldn't be Hokage, That I am too important as a member of Konoha to coup myself up into that tower. Hyuga Hiyashi nearly growled at his failure, but did not show his displeasure. He saw an opening. Asuma-san has accidentally risen a valid point. Uzumaki knows not enough about the world of shinobi to lead a village. He is too ignorant of this world to lead it. Danzo just stared at the Hyuga. He can be taught. And what is so bad at not knowing the evils of the job? It may help him keep a clearer conscience when he sends someone to their deaths for the good of the village. There was a hush over the room as they mulled over this. Danzo decided to go for the kill. Finally, Uzumaki Naruto is perfect for the role of Hokage since he has the heritage to back up such a task. Jiraiya and Kakashi both opened their eyes widely as they heard Danzo subtly hint at who Naruto's parents were. Before they could stop the ball from rolling, the Akamichi clan head spoke up. What do you mean his heritage? Uzumaki was orphaned at birth, and chosen for the sealing process since no one knew who his parents were. And if they have survived, no one claimed him as their son. Danzo smirked. I believe Jiraiya is most suited to announce this, wouldn't you say? Jiraiya glared back at him. It was meant to stay a secret until he was ready, Danzo. You know that. I also know that this is an important fact for the council in their decision-making process. It needs to be heard. And who says he isn't ready today? I am giving you the respect of telling them, but I will rescind the offer and say it myself if necessary. Jiraiya knew he was backed into a corner. He had to announce it. Damn you, Danzo. He turned to the council. If I even hear a whisper of this on the streets before Naruto decides to make this known, even the most basic allusion to it, I will deal with who leaked it. Sensei was too lax in what was done with Naruto and the Kyuubi, but I will not be. This secret is the one of highest guarded secret in the village. Stupidly, a council member asked, what's the highest guarded secret? Jiraiya just glared at the idiot. It is a secret only known to a handful of people at the top know of. Only the elders, Danzo, and the Hokage can know it. Even I have been left unaware of what it is, I just know it exists. Anyway, the parents of Uzumaki Naruto. I cannot honestly believe no shinobi has realized it, it is that obvious. I would have expected Shikaku would know. The Nara clan leader shook his head. No, I haven't a clue. I think my son figured it out though. A few days ago he was asking about Naruto's parents, and some basic rules of genetics. He had one of those looks he gets when he realizes something shocking, but he shook it off saying that it was too much of a drag to talk about. Jiraiya laughed. So someone figured it out. Good to hear. I'm sure someone would have put together the looks of his father and personality of his mother and see that Naruto was the end result. The council quickly raced to figure out who Jiraiya meant, but the Toad Sage beat everyone to the punch. Uzumaki Naruto is the son of Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato. Jaws all around were dropped, and more than a few of the council members who hadn't treated Naruto well over the years began to get nervous. One decided not to accept it. Impossible. We all know the child was lost when Kushina was giving birth during the Kyuubi attack. And there is no way the Yondaime would make his son a container of the demon. We only let him be named Uzumaki to keep the name alive. Danzo was the one to respond. Initial reports did say the baby died during birth, but we later learned it was kidnapped by a masked figure minutes after birth. The official story was never retracted as both Kushina and Minato died, leaving the child orphan. We determined it irresponsible to acknowledge the heritage of the child. Iwa and Kumo would have both been threats because of the child. A petite blue-haired Junin asked, why Kumo? I know Iwa hated the Yondaime, but what did Kumo have against him? Homura, the elder who had been quiet up until then, spoke up. Kumo had little qualm with the Yondaime, but more interested in his heritage with Uzumaki Kushina. Because? Homura looked regretfully at the Hyuga clan leader. The kidnapping of your heiress was not the first attempt by Kumo to acquire a female member of this village. Years ago, Kushina was kidnapped and taken due to her chakra chain ability. Interestingly enough, it was the Yondaime who saved her and actually began their romance after this. Hyuga Hiyashi slowly nodded. I knew of this already. Though we were not very close, Kushina and I were on the same genin team for a little while, and I kept up tabs on my acquaintance. But still, it is hard to believe that Uzumaki is their son. Jiraiya nodded. Well, believe it. In the village, a blonde shinobi suddenly sneezed. The council member from before resumed his questioning. I still do not believe that our Yondaime would seal the Kyuubi into his own son. He would never let his son become a monster, and he stopped when he felt the menace of Jiraiya march towards him, pointing his finger in his face. He really hated ignorance and blatant lies. Especially at this point. Naruto is no monster, but that surprises me. I see how he is treated, and how he kept sane and still loves this village is beyond me. Be thankful he was his son. But never, and I mean ever, call him a monster. Or else I will show you a real one. Jiraiya increased his killer intent as he brought the finger closer to the man's face, but let it dissipate before he was a hair-width away from his nose. He turned away abruptly and coldly asked, "Tell me, counselor, what were your thoughts on the Yondaime's wife, Kushina?" The counselor tried to control his breathing, but it was not an easy task. He managed to stutter out a response. Well, she was a little annoying, but she was a good person, and loved the village greatly. And what do you know of Uzumaki Mito? The counselor raised his eyebrow. I believe, she was the wife of the first Hokage, correct? She lived a long time, and was considered a great person. Jiraiya nodded. Correct, sir. 2 women, both good people, both the wives of Hokages. Both from the same clan, Uzumaki, but not by any relation. Both, however, would be hated in this time. They would be mistreated, ignored, and possibly even abused. The counselor grew angry. What? Why? They were good people, they wouldn't deserve that. Jiraiya nodded. They do not, as does Naruto. But being the container of the Kyuubi changes that, does it not? A gasp came from everyone in the room. To most of the Junin, clan heads, and council, it was the revelation that 2 of their Hokage's wives were previous container of the demon. To the elders, Kakashi, Asuma, and the Hyuga clan head, the gasp was in the fact that Jiraiya revealed that information so casually. Danzo gave Jiraiya a look that was harsh. This did not seem like the time to reveal that information, Jiraiya. It was important to do since it would show these people that my student, Uzumaki Naruto, can be trusted and a good Hokage. Jiraiya looked at Danzo while speaking. I don't trust anything you are saying right now, Danzo, but I will agree that your idea isn't terrible. Though I do not think he is by any means ready, I stand by you in making him Godem Hokage. Better have a good choice for the future than a bad choice right now. No offense, Hyuga, but you have a stick so far shoved up your ass that being Hokage simply won't work. You should focus on fixing your clan's shenanigans. And I doubt that I could get Tsunadeheim back here to take the job, so I might as well vote yes to Naruto. Jiraiya finished his statement, giving his vote and suddenly starting the election process. Danzo was happy to get this support, but he knew what a hassle it would be from Jiraiya moving forward. A few council members began to look uneasy, as the one who questioned Naruto's heritage spoke once again. But why would the Yondaime continue this curse on the Uzumaki line? Why on his son? Kakashi answered this final question. It isn't a curse, but fate. Uzumakis have a genetic trait that lengthens their lives by almost triple the normal lifespan of a person while naturally producing chakra at levels twice or even 3 times as big as a person. This trait suits them for surviving and holding in the Kyuubi, as it would likely kill anyone else who held it. When it escaped during Kushina-chan's labor with Naruto, Naruto was the only Uzumaki capable of holding in the Kyuubi. His eye narrowed at his final thoughts. And even if someone else could hold the Kyuubi, Sensei was never one to do something unless he would do it first. If he needed someone to be the container, he could not ask the Yamanakas to hand over their daughter, or ask the Hyuga to seal it into their unborn child. He wouldn't put it into some random orphan. No, if he were to do it, he would do it with his son. A silence came over the room, and both the Yamanaka and Hyuga clan heads were in deep thought about how their daughters could have been the ones subjected to the Kyuubi. A council member spoke up. I stand with you, Danzo. If not for any other reason, it will be an apology for how I've treated Uzumaki Naruto in the past. Another council member rose. As do I. Soon, most of the council members rose up. Of the 13 that were in this council, 9 went the way of Danzo and thus Naruto for Hokage, making the vote 11-4. Soon, the clan heads began to speak. I still say I'm the best fit for Hokage. Hyuga Hiyashi stubbornly spoke. Nara Shikaku looked at his 2 longtime friends and teammates and mouthed something. They nodded, and he turned his attention back to the council. Ino Shikacho votes for Naruto. Inuzuka Sume had been quiet the whole time, a fact a few shinobi just realized and were shocked at. She was in deep thought, before she let out a growl. I like the kid, but I'm voting for Hyuga. The 10 clan heads came out even in their votes, 5-5, but the strength of 3 major clans against 2 for Naruto as Hokage was noticed. 16-9. Finally, the Junin began to speak. Kakashi gave a smirk. Like father, like son. I trust Naruto to do the right thing, with a lot of guidance. And it would be interesting to say I was taught by one Hokage, and taught another. 17-9. Sarutobi spoke up. Dad always liked the kid, and said he would be a great Hokage someday. I don't think he meant today, but that's just life. I'm behind Naruto. 18-9. Unfortunately, they looked like they were among the few. Of the 10 Junin invited, there were only 2 others who voted for Naruto. They rest unable to find themselves being led by a 13-year-old appealing. The vote stood at 20-15, but it was not over. Neither Homura or Kaharu had cast their ballots, and it required an approximate 60% vote to select a Hokage. The whole room seemed to wait on them, as they sized up and imaginary Naruto and the real Hiashi. Kaharu was the first to speak. While I find Hiashi makes the most sense, Hiruzen told me that your gut instinct is sometimes more important. And my gut is telling me that we will see great things from the boy. Though I don't like the idea for now, I will vote for Naruto. The vote at 21-15, it was up to Homura to decide. Would Naruto become Hokage, or would he be rejected so close to his dream? Somehow, the shinobi knew that the support of the council members was fleeting, and technically the vote was barely 50% pro-Naruto by the shinobi, so this seemed like the only shot Naruto had at Hokage this time around. Finally Homura spoke. I never thought it would be up to me if we had a new Hokage. I thought it would end up being a different situation. Honestly, I thought Asuma-san or Hitaki-san would have taken the title, but it did not come to pass. So here I am, stuck between a 13-year-old demon container with a famous legacy, or a strong, dependable clan head known as too strict and lets an atrocity like the cage seal to exist in his clan. Unfortunately for you, Hyuga-san, that decides this for me. He weakly smiled to the gathering. I select Naruto Uzumaki. The realization of his words hung over the room. They had just made Uzumaki Naruto, the village pariah, the resident Jinchuriki, their Hokage. All of those who had not voted for him, and had voted for Hyuga Hiashi refused to believe this. Surprisingly, all but 2 of the people had gotten over the container issue, save for a Junin and councilwoman who had both lost lovers in the attack 13 years ago, but more over age and experience. One of the clan heads who had voted for Hyuga rose up. This vote is not yet finished. The Uchiha clan has not voted on the affair, and they deserve a vote. Danzo shook his head. That clan is but one child, who is only 13 years old. The head shook his head. So, he plans to restore his clan, from what I understand. And we are nominating a 13-year-old to be our leader. Why not have one in his age group vote? In fact, unless I am wrong, Kakashi is the Junin for a team consisting of both of them. Why shouldn't he have a vote? Danzo tried to shake him off. If we use that logic, we must track down Tsunade, as she has a vote as Sanin. That could take months, and leave our village leaderless, and in the eyes of the other villages, weak. Jiraiya raised his eyebrow at the thought, and went to say something, but was cut off by the arguing head. No, she is not in the village, and in fact has done a self-imposed exile of this village. Its concerns is not for her to decide. The Uchiha, however, is here, and is a member of the village. He has a right to vote, and goddamn it he should have the right to execute it. Kaharu spoke up before Danzo could retort. I am afraid, Danzo-san, that he is correct. The Uchiha must get a vote on such an important topic. She focused his intention on Kakashi. Kakashi-san, if you may, retrieve your student so he may vote on this matter. Kakashi sighed, not really wanting to bring in the Uchiha, but it was in fact necessary. Should I bring Naruto as well? This vote does concern him becoming Hokage. Kaharu nodded. Yes, that will work perfectly. Now please, hurry up. Kakashi lazily put his hands into the necessary sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He muttered, as a copy of himself appeared. It disappeared out the door to do the task at hand. Nara Shikaku looked around at the council, and thought about what was at stake. And it was up to the vote of the Uchiha. He almost laughed to himself. Now, we wait. Slowly, the trio of Team 7 made their way from the training grounds to Naruto's haven, his beloved home away from home, Ichikaru's. They normally didn't eat ramen with him, but they were too tired to think about going anywhere else for lunch. Naruto gave a grin. I think I'm gonna order 4 number 6 bowls of beef no pork no miso pork ramen. That sounds really good. What are you going to get, Sakura-chan? She could barely shrug. I don't know, maybe salt or plain or something. Do they serve anything besides ramen? Naruto shrugged. Probably. I don't know what, since I always order ramen. What about you, Sasuke? What are you gonna get? Sasuke mustered up a glare because of the nickname. I don't know, Dobi. What are you getting again? Naruto didn't realize what he was called. 6 bowls of miso pork. Sasuke turned his lips into a smirk. I'm having 7 bowls of miso pork. Naruto nearly stopped at that. He gave a suspicious glare at Sasuke. You know, I'm feeling extra hungry today. Make that 8 bowls. Did I say 7? I meant 9. Sakura saw where this was going. It was a repeat of dinner with Tsunami all over again. Guys, stop it. 10, 11. Naruto's nostrils flared. 12 bowls of ramen. Believe it. Beat that, Teme. Sasuke nearly cracked a smile. Nearly. Watch me, Dobi. Unfortunately for both of you, you will be getting no ramen as of now. Both of you are wanted at the Grand Council meeting on the 3rd floor of the Hokage Tower. Now, you can eat after your presence is no longer needed. Kakashi showed up behind them, scaring them all slightly. Naruto was the first to recover. Watch it, Kakashi-sensei, you nearly killed me. I can't die before I'm Hokage. Believe it. Kakashi couldn't help but think to himself, won't you be in for a shock, Naruto? Sakura was the next to recover. Darn it, sensei. Why did you have to scare us like that? Sasuke quickly recovered and ignored the obvious. You said the 3rd floor of the Hokage Tower? Kakashi nodded. Correct, so you and Naruto better get a move on. Naruto looked puzzled. Why do they need us for? Kakashi looked at him knowingly. You will find out once you get there. Naruto just nodded. Alrighty. Hey, I bet I can beat you there. He turned to look at Sasuke but saw empty space. He looked around and saw Sasuke had already left to the tower, taking the rooftops. Oh, no you don't. Naruto yelled, and furiously made chase. Sakura just stared at the duo, and then to Kakashi-sensei. She wanted to follow, she really did, but food. Hey sensei, do you want to get some ramen with me? Kakashi shrugged. Why not? Better than just dispelling myself. Sakura was taken aback. You're Hokage Bunshin? The Bunshin nodded. The real me is back at the meeting. Sakura stared back in the direction of the tower. So tempting, but, come on, let's get some ramen, Kakashi-sensei Bunshin. Sasuke heard the loud footsteps behind him, but ignored them. It was just the Dobi trying to beat him to the meeting room. He was at the door, and looked up at the Anbu who were covering the entrances. Kakashi-sensei sent for me and the Dobi back there. Could I get in? The Anbu behind the turtle mask sized up the Uchiha, and nodded. He opened the door, and Sasuke walked right in, with a stumbling Naruto following him seconds later. Once Uzumaki cleared the doorway, the Anbu shut the door closed. He turned to his partner in Anbu, Rat, and whispered, why would they need those two to help decide for Hokage? Rat shrugged, I'm betting they need to vouch for someone. Maybe Kakashi-senpai? They are his students. Turtle thought about it, and nodded. Probably. That is odd to think. Kakashi-san as Hokage? Nothing will get down for 3 hours every day. Rat let out a little laugh. Yeah. Naruto managed to right himself before he bowled into somebody, and found himself being looked at by the 38 people in the room. Slightly embarrassed, he rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry, I was trying to get here as fast as possible and I kind of sort of tripped over something when I was in the hallway, so I was stumbling but I didn't fall, so yeah. The people in the room listened to the explanation and accepted it at face value. It sounded like Naruto, honestly. Jiraiya motioned to 2 chairs, one in the front, next to Hyuga Hiashi, the other among the clan heads, where Hiashi once sat. Naruto, sit there next to Hyuga-sama, and Sasuke, take the other seat. Sasuke grunted and Naruto nodded to the request, taking the respective seats. Then, Jiraiya cleared his throat while standing up. Boys, I am going to get right to the point. This meeting is the meeting to decide who will be the next Hokage for this village. Naruto grinned. And I'm guessing you guys realized I was the right guy for the job and you were picking me, right? Sasuke openly chuckled. In your dreams, Dobi. Naruto growled. Shut up, Teme. They so could be naming me Hokage. Believe it. Sasuke shook his head. The day they name you Hokage is the day pigs fly. Asuma began to laugh. He couldn't help himself. The image of Ino flapping her arms trying to fly was too funny. Sasuke tried to glare at him, but it bounced right off of him. Frustrated, he turned to his sensei. What is he laughing at? Kakashi sighed. I think you accidentally said something in Asuma's mind. But believe it or not, Sasuke, Naruto is really here since he might be named the next Hokage. It was rare that Sasuke was at a literal loss for words. Sure, he didn't always speak, but that didn't mean he didn't have something to say. But in this situation, in these circumstances, he was speechless. And if it was rare for Sasuke, it was a first for Naruto. He literally froze in his seat as that information sunk in. He did think he would become Hokage someday, he truly did. But even he had been joking around some when he said they were naming him Hokage. He knew he wasn't strong enough to defend the village yet. The big word being yet. But, somehow, his sensei just told him that he really might be named the next Hokage. Still, it didn't last forever as he recovered from the shock enough to ask the council, seriously? The idea of him becoming Hokage was still sinking in. Hamaru and Kaharu, people Naruto recognized as people that helped out the old man, began to nod their heads. Yes, young Naruto. Danzo over here. Hamaru motioned her hands to the bandaged warhawk. Nominated you for Hokage and you have been accepted as a legitimate candidate for the position of Godem Hokage. Sasuke finally recovered and was livid. How the hell does this Dobi even remotely qualify for Hokage? Sasuke was confused as well. How the hell did Naruto, the orange-wearing dead last, get nominated to be Hokage? Danzo took to the defense of his decision once again. While Naruto is a most unconventional candidate, he has multiple accomplishments that are going for him. He is considered the savior of the land of waves, a hero in Takigakure, and has received great acclaim in pacifying Gaara with the leaders in Sanagakure. He is extremely powerful, as shown in defeating the highly acclaimed Hyuga Neji and of Subaku Gaara. He has massive potential being unused, which we can focus in as he is Hokage. He is highly loyal and protective of the village, always top traits needed in a Hokage. He is willing to sacrifice himself for the good of the village, a task repeatedly asked for by those who claim the mantle of Hokage. Finally, he has the will to become Hokage. It will very few in this village show. Sasuke listened to his explanation, he honestly did, but he did not see it. I don't get it, why him though? Why not someone better, someone older, why not me? I am powerful, I am a hero, I have potential, and I seek the power. Nara Shikaku explained quickly. You say you seek power, but that is not what a Hokage does. Hokage seek responsibility, and a desire to protect this village. You are unfit for Hokage position at this time due to your focus on other matters. A person with such a great diversion in his attention cannot be expected to be a Hokage who will protect his village. And Naruto has other things going for him. Like what? Sasuke, despite seeking power, knew he was not good for the role of Hokage. He was not a Hokage, he was an Avenger. But he was very curious what made his blonde teammate such a good candidate for Hokage. Jiraiya apologetically looked towards Naruto, transfixed by this conversation on why he could be Hokage. Naruto, I have to explain some things to Sasuke. Some of these things, I know you'd wish he didn't know. And some of these things will shock you, and I am sorry for that. I wish I could have told you, but the law prevented me from doing so. Understand? Naruto simply nodded, knowing he meant to reveal his status as container of the Kyuubi. He had gotten close to Sasuke, and nearly considered him a brother, and he thought the bond was mutual. Sasuke was one of the few people he thought he could tell and not be instantly hated, and he hoped that was right. He was highly curious about this other law, though. He wondered what it could possibly be. He saw Jiraiya about to explain, but he decided to step in. Ero Sennin, stop, he exclaimed, ignoring the few people that blushed at his name for the man. Let me tell him the thing I know. He deserves that much. Jiraiya had a gleam in his eye as he saw the boy take the initiative. He nodded, and waited to see how Naruto would explain. Sasuke sat there, showing his anticipation, trying to figure out what could be such a big deal. Naruto set his gaze to the floor below him. Do you know how I beat Gaara, Sasuke? Sasuke shook his head slowly. He had been shocked when it happened, and wondering that very same thing for a while. The truth is, Sasuke, I didn't beat him. Not really. Sure, it was me beating him up. But the power that caused it wasn't mine. Naruto let the words hang for a moment before continuing. It is impossible to kill a view. They are too strong, and need to be sealed away in something. So when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha 13 years ago, when the 4th Hokage defeated it, he couldn't kill it. So he sealed it inside me. It is the reason the villagers don't like me, and why most of the older people in the village ignore me. When they see me, they see the demon. He lifted up his teary blue eyes. But I'm not the demon. I just have it stuck in my gut. And you guys don't know, cuz Gigi made a law forbidding people to talk about it or tell their kids, so I could try to grow up normal. He let out a little laugh. That worked well, huh? Sasuke just stared at the person he considered a friend, one of the many things he would probably keep to his grave, in shock. His friend, crying. His friend, holding a demon inside of him. He slowly turned to the villagers and his fellow shinobi, but shook his head. They weren't worth the air, to tell them how big idiots they were. The dobi may have some extra bite, but he was still just the dobi. His friend. Sasuke just gave a sly smile as Naruto watched, and shrugged his shoulders. What do you expect me to do? Attack you or something? You're still a dobi, even if you had Kami sealed inside of you. It just means you got some demon stuck inside of you that can't do anything. No harm, right? Naruto shook his head. No, it can do stuff. When I get mad or something, the power comes to me. Like the time I kicked Haku's butt on the bridge. I thought he killed you. My rival, my friend, and I got mad. If his mask didn't slip off, I would have killed him to avenge you. And ever since Ero Sennin threw me off a cliff so I could get the Kyuubi to give me its chakra, I can do that too. I had to use a lot of its chakra to beat Gaara, though. But it makes sense, since he was using his demon too. Sasuke almost cried. He wouldn't, of course, but being called a friend by him meant something to him. And the fact that his death had got him mad enough to use the Kyuubi's chakra was kind of cool, he admitted to himself. I could still kick your ass. Naruto's eyes began to go aflame. Bring it on, Teme. They were broken up by Jiraiya, which led them to realize their deep heartfelt conversation was seen by a couple dozen people. Naruto blushed, and looked away from everybody, while Sasuke popped his collar just a little bit higher to shield himself. That was more heartfelt and honest than either one was comfortable around each other. The conversation had quite a reaction on the crowd. It struck a personal chord, with Naruto's mention of a harsh life, and Sasuke's casual acceptance. Even the Hyuga clan had smiled a little at their strength of their bonds. Eventually, Kakashi spoke up. Jiraiya, if you don't mind, I would like to tell my students the next bit. I will leave the big news to you, but I want to get a say. The council and Jiraiya all thought about this, and so no problem with it. Well, Sasuke, Naruto, I want to tell you about the history of the container of the Kyuubi in Konoha. Naruto was surprised to say the least. Wait, you mean I'm not the first? He felt a little down about that. If he was gonna hold this curse, he might as well been the first one too. Kakashi nodded. Yes, in fact, they all came from the same clan as you do. The Uzumaki clan. Wait, I'm a part of a clan? There's no Uzumaki clan in Konoha. Kakashi nodded. Yes, Naruto, you are, and you are correct. Sasuke, there isn't. The Uzumaki clan was a part of Uzushiogakure before it was destroyed by Iwagakure during the Second Shinobi World War. The survivors migrated to Konoha since the Uzumaki clan had ties to Konoha. The Shodai was married to the Uzumaki Mito. She was the first container of the demon. Naruto's eyes went wide. You mean the container was the Hokage's wife? Kakashi simply nodded. Yes, and when the time came, before her death, she had to pass it on to another Uzumaki. Your mother. My mom was a container too. Kakashi simply nodded. Then why the heck was I treated so bad? The guilty parties stayed silent, so Jiraiya answered for them. In the case of Uzumaki Mito, people understood it was a burden for the good of the village. In the case of your mother, people were mostly ignorant to the fact. For you, they cast the pain they felt from the Kyuubi's attack on the village onto you. One of the council members stood up slowly. I apologize. My actions towards you were wrong and stupid. I hope you can forgive me. A councilwoman nodded. Yeah, I would like to apologize for my actions. I treated you poorly when I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have projected my hate for the Kyuubi onto you. I apologize. Soon, all but the one councilwoman who was keeping a grudge apologized, followed by a few of the Junin who had a guilty conscience, along with a couple of the minor clan heads who were guilty. When Naruto thought he had received all of the apologies, one came from a person he didn't expect. On behalf of the entire Hyuga family, I apologize for the negative treatment we have given you. I am at most fault with this, as I should have known better especially. Naruto was a little confused. How come, Hyuga-san? Hiyashi was a little annoyed at the lack of proper honorific, but it wasn't that important. Well, I knew your mother and about how she was the container, since we were on the same genin team. Naruto's eyes went wide. Really? You were on a team with my mom? Hiyashi nodded. Yes, and might I say you act just like she did, down to the verbal tick. Though she said believe me, instead of believe it. We were not particularly close, as I found her somewhat irritating, we got along well enough. I should have realized you were her child, but certain things were withheld from us that made me ignorant of this fact. Sasuke nodded in sympathy to Hiyashi's plight of an annoying teammate. Naruto was more curious about his mother. Really? Like me? What did she look like? Hiyashi gave a gentle smile despite himself. He was giving a kid memories about his mother, something he previously had done for his youngest daughter Hanabi when she asked about her mother 2 years ago. Well, even I will admit she was a beautiful woman, with long red hair and striking purple eyes. Your personality is just like your mother, your looks are not. Naruto sort of laughed. So you are saying that I look like my dad? Hiyashi gave a slight nod. Correct. So who was he? Naruto asked, not realizing the tension in the room. Even Sasuke was curious. Hiyashi turned to Jiraiya. I believe this is for you to answer. Naruto quickly turned to his second sensei. So who was he? Was he an awesome hero or what? Normally, Sasuke would make a joke here, but he had a feeling he was actually a hero if it was kept secret. Or a criminal. But for some reason, the way a lot of people were sucking up to Naruto, he was sure it was hero. And he doubted a son of a criminal that had to be kept secret would be voted Hokage. Which he still thought was bullshit, but it was happening apparently. The Dobi? Seriously? Jiraiya sighed. Your father, Naruto, was my prized student, Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Sasuke's jaw dropped. The Dobi was the son of a Hokage. What the fuck? The son of a Hokage? No wonder they think he could be Hokage, if he was anything like his father. But he wasn't, he quickly remembered how the Hyuga head had explained it. He was like his mother. But he doubted he was entirely like his mother. So maybe. Naruto, on the other hand, was shocked. His idol, the man he strived to be better than, was his father. He was the son of a Hokage. His father was a hero. His father was a great man. His father sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. That thought triggered something in Naruto, as he began to get angry. His father made him live a crappy life. His father made him have to deal with the Kyuubi on a daily basis. Have to worry about a demon escaping from you and killing everyone you love. Naruto's anger grew to the point that he began to draw from the Kyuubi's chakra. People began to notice the red chakra emanating from his body and slowly began to back off. The council members were beginning to rethink their new-founded opinions on the boy. Jiraiya had been afraid of this reaction, and was unsure of what to do next. Sasuke was confused, until he remembered a few things Naruto had said. He realized Naruto was pissed that his own father sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. Sasuke could understand that anger, that betrayal. He also grew uneasy thinking about his own anger towards his brother, and translating it to the chakra he was seeing. You are saying my father put a demon inside of me? Naruto screamed in a voice not fully his own. How could he do that? To his own son. Jiraiya knew what to do next, so he moved towards the boy. Naruto, calm down. He had no choice on the matter. You were the only one who could handle the sealing. He should have tried harder. I was his own son, damn it. A chakra tail began to slowly form behind him, getting everyone on guard, with a few council members about to bolt out of the room. He couldn't do that. Minato was too nice, and too good of a man to force on another the burden. He couldn't ask another man to do something that he himself wouldn't do. Jiraiya tried to explain. It doesn't matter. He was my father, damn it. He should have been there. The root of the problem began to come out. Besides simple anger at being chosen, he was feeling abandoned. Kakashi took a step forward. Calm down, Naruto. Naruto released a load of killer intent directly at his sensei, who didn't budge. Shut up, sensei. Where were you? You were his student. Why weren't you there for me? He turned his attention to his newest sensei. And you? He was your student. Where the fuck were you? Writing those damn pervy books? Both were taken aback at the accusation, and both felt guilty. They both had excuses. Kakashi didn't realize it until they began training, and Jiraiya had to deal with his spy network, but they should have tried harder, they both knew. Naruto's anger began to stabilize the tale, and people were unsure of what to do. Except for Sasuke. Sasuke, as confidentially as he could make himself look, began to walk up to Naruto. Everyone in the room was surprised by this, and began to hope that the Uchiha heir wasn't on a death wish or something. Naruto began to eye his friend suspiciously as he walked up to him, fighting through the killer intent he was leaking. Eventually, he found himself standing before Naruto. And everyone in the room was shocked as Sasuke slowly balled up his right hand into a fist, and punched the Kyuubi-powered Naruto in the face as hard as he could. Calm down, Dobi. Now isn't the time to get pissed off. Save it for later. Naruto slowly got up from the punch, chakra still flowing, and walked back up to Sasuke. The punch didn't show due to his rapid regeneration, but there was a drop of blood coming from the corner of Naruto's mouth. And, just as calmly, Naruto balled his Kyuubi chakra-covered hand into a ball and decked Sasuke, sending him flying into the arms of one of the Junins. Everyone in the room was slowly backing to the edge of the room, expecting a fight. The Junin Sasuke landed on pushed him off, forcing him to stand up. Sasuke had an obvious bruise around his eye, and even a slight scorch mark from the chakra. He walked back up to Naruto and just glared at him, inches away from his face. Naruto returned the glare, and slowly the chakra began to fade. First his tail vanished, leaving a cloak that was thinning, and slowly the cloak faded away, until all that was left were the red slit eyes. Then, they too went. Naruto suddenly grabbed onto Sasuke for support, with Sasuke actually helping him to do so. Sasuke maneuvered Naruto back to his seat, and unceremoniously dropped him into the chair. Naruto looked up with his blue eyes and flashed a grin. You went farther. Everyone in the room wanted to sweat drop at this surprisingly display, even Kakashi. Danzo was even surprised at how things went for his Hokage candidate, and couldn't help but compare it to him and Hiruzen. Sasuke gave him a smirk. Yeah, but I can still kick your ass. I would like to see you try. Jiraiya decided to break up this sizing up. Okay, you two, break it up. If you guys want to fight it out, wait until after this meeting. He was also glad this tower and room in particular had so many seals in it. The only people who would have felt that surge were in this room. Sasuke gave a HN and walked back to his chair, while Naruto glared at his perverted sensei. Jiraiya felt the glare and sighed. Look, Naruto, I'm sorry. He turned to look him in the face. He saw the hurt and didn't like it. He was his godson. I screwed up. I'll admit it. Your dad, he made me your godfather. And I was supposed to watch you. But I didn't. I'm sorry. But to be fair, I had to help the village with my spy network. If it hadn't been for that, I would have been there for you. Jiraiya patted his back as the hurt turned into a genuine smile. It's okay. I understand, Arrow Godfather. Jiraiya decided to let that one slide, since he was forgiving him. Kakashi came up to the plate next. I would have raised you if I thought I could. But I don't think I'm exactly good, father, material. And, I didn't know you were his son. Naruto was confused. How come, you were his student? Koharu sighed. Naruto, at your birth, someone kidnapped you. Naruto's eyes bulged, since you were the Yondaime's son. Initial reports said you had died, and after you parents both passed away, we thought it was best to keep saying that. Understand your father and mother had enemies, and it was in your best interest that it be kept a secret. We were going to tell you on your 18th birthday, or the day you made Junin, so you could be strong enough. I hope you forgive us. She motioned to Homura and Danzo. Naruto thought about it for a moment and sighed. I guess I understand. Doesn't mean I have to like it. He nearly began to pout when he looked at everybody in the room, especially the civilians, who were still on edge. He nervously scratched the back of his head. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean for that to happen, but I just got a little mad. A little? Shut up, Teme. Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. I hope it doesn't stop you from voting me Hokage. He gave everyone a big grin. Danzo liked his ability to rebound from situations, it would provide useful for him. He turned his attention to the Uchiha with the deciding vote. It was actually a blessing that the Uchiha had come along, since the 22-15 technically did not give 60% needed to vote one as Hokage. So that no one could call it out later, he needed the Uchiha to vote for him. He hadn't realized it until Hitaki sent the clone, but he was thankful Koharu had gone by the book. Now the question was, would his Uchiha teammate vote for him? Homura began to talk. How they vote does not matter, as they have already voted. We bring Uchiha here to be the decision maker on the subject. She turned to the Uchiha. Currently, we have two candidates for the position of Godem Hokage. Your teammate Uzumaki Naruto and the leader of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hiyashi. The vote is currently 22-15, and your vote shall decide if we have a new Hokage or we go to Plan B for the spot. Sasuke soon had his elbows on the desk, his hands together, like he usually did when he was sitting. He looked into his joined hands, and then to the elder. What is Plan B? In the case of two candidates, it is a spar, no holds barred. Naruto audibly gulped. Even he wasn't dumb enough to think he could take the Hyuga clan leader, unless he used the Kyuubi big time. And he didn't want to risk losing control, like how he almost did. Hiyashi's mind was racing with all the possibilities of how to best continue, no matter how the vote went. Sasuke began to go into thought. Who has 22 and who has 15 votes for them? Homura went to speak, but the contender stepped in. No, it could unduly influence him to vote one way or another, to purposefully vote one way or another. If it is to be honest, then he must not know. Sasuke gave a glance at the man. Why are you afraid? Think that if you are so close to victory, your clan rival will spite the title away from you? Or is it you are so close to losing, your only hope is that I vote against my teammate? The Hyuga said nothing. The experienced blood enemy who can't even keep his branch family in check, or the Dobi son of a hero with lots of potential but could theoretically kill us all. Who should I choose? Sasuke thought to himself. Naruto was his friend, wanted the position, and had heritage to back him up. However, the Hyuga was more experienced, less of a Dobi, and probably knew what he would be doing. The answer came down to the simple question, who did he trust more? His mortal enemy, or a demon container? I select Naruto. Naruto almost stopped breathing in shock. Sasuke picked him. To be Hokage? Homura spoke. It has been decided. By a vote of 23-15, Uzumaki Naruto has been selected to become the Godem Hokage of Konohagakure. Naruto was ecstatic. He did it. He was Hokage. He wanted to hoop and holler. He wanted to scream it to the heavens. He wanted to dance forever. He wanted to personally tell every villager that the demon was the Hokage. But it took every ounce of self-constraint to stop him from doing so. Every goddamn milligram. Naruto knew from the old man that the Hokage couldn't act like that. So he just sat there, shaking slightly in excitement, wearing a huge grin on his face. Jiraiya looked suspiciously at Danzo, wondering his reaction. He was real happy for the kid, he got his dreams, but he didn't trust it one bit. He was sure everyone, even some of the civilians, saw this as a ploy for Danzo and the elders to have much more control than they did under the Sandaime, but his logic had been sound enough to convince people in voting for him. Heck, even he had against his best judgment, but it sure as hell was better than the Hyuga. He only wished he could be on the council to help stop this, but he knew he couldn't stay in Konoha forever. He had to upkeep his network, and that went throughout the lands. He would have to travel. If only he could get someone he trusted on the council, to help keep Danzo and the other elders from calling all the shots. Naruto did have the right to appoint new elder counselors, he was allowed 5. The Sandaime just only used 3. Right then, Jiraiya was stuck with inspiration. It was a long shot, but it was a perfect solution for Jiraiya. If he could only go and convince her, it would be for the best. But then he stopped to think about it. He couldn't leave Naruto at the moment. He had just become Hokage. He was susceptible to major influence by Danzo, and could ruin everything. If Danzo got his hands on Naruto, he might become little better than a figurehead root member. How could he protect Naruto now and long term? Jiraiya began pondering how to best solve this conundrum. Danzo smirked confidently. The Uchiha had come through for him after all, and had gotten his shinobi into office. He was very, very glad that his plan had worked. It had been a total crapshoot, a spur-of-the-moment inspiration. But Danzo was the son of a Nara mother. He could think very quickly, and come up with plans instantly, all to his benefit. Now, he had to get control of the boy's training to make him worthy. Sasuke couldn't help but be shocked by himself. He had voted Naruto of all people as Hokage. Sure, his other option was Hyuga Hiyashi, the clan head of the family he was taught to think of as the enemy since he began to walk, but it was still a hard thing to comprehend. He began to think of the things he might do, like make ramen the official food of Konoha. That would be bad enough, but how would he deal with policy? Protecting the village? He gave a glance to the man that had nominated Naruto and stopped. He was a little curious why he got the same feeling from that man as he did Orochimaru. That power, that presence. He had an innate feeling that this man could give him the power he needed to beat Itachi. He gave a little smile. With Danzo and Kakashi instructing him, his brother was as good as dead. Hiyashi was very frustrated. He had hoped he would have gotten the vote to the sparring round, but it had failed. He knew he could defeat Naruto and overcome the Kyuubi's chakra, he did with his mother. Now, Danzo's puppet was wearing the hat. He needed to figure out a way to steer some of the power away from Danzo and into his hands. He considered his resources and what he could use in this task. A memory struck him concerning his father-in-law, and he knew he had the answer of how to wrangle his way into power. If he could get the cooperation of his supporters, he would have his power over the boy and away from Danzo. Naruto broke the silence. So, what else do we have to talk about? Many people were stunned by the question. They had not been expecting him to say that. A minor clan head spoke out. What do you mean? Naruto looked at him. Well, this is the Grand Council, right? You guys ran the show when we had no Hokage. So, I bet you guys have to talk about stuff. And since I'm Hokage, I get some say in this stuff. His analysis had not been expected, so it took a moment for someone to answer their new Hokage. Well, Hokage-sama, this will only a council to appoint the newest Hokage. Nothing else was on the agenda. Homura explained. Oh, Naruto said. So there is nothing for me to do? The council was surprised at his eagerness to get started. They thought he would be too busy celebrating to begin working. Koharu shook his head. Well, we the council must talk to you about a few things first, but beyond that, there is nothing that I know of that can be done today. Naruto began to nod furiously. Okay, so let's talk. A few eyebrows rose, until Danzo clarified. When Koharu-san says council, he means the Hokage's council. This meaning me, Koharu-san, and Homura-san. Naruto looked at Danzo. Don't I get to pick my own council? I don't really know you guys, so shouldn't I pick people I know to be on my council? Danzo's eyes rose out of fear. Hamaru and Koharu, on the other hand, were much calmer. If you wish that, Hokage-sama, then yes, you can select a new council. However, we have worked under the Sandaime for many years, and could prove of utmost importance. Hamaru explained. Koharu continued. Technically, you may elect 2 more people you see fit to be on this council to help you. It may in fact be in your best interest to do so, so you may have seasoned counselors when the 3 of us may retire. Danzo mentally blanched. Though they were right, it was not for the best of his plan. He should have taken this under consideration, but he had been thinking till long-term to calculate this into account. Jiraiya smiled, sensing an opportunity. Well, council, I see a perfect opportunity here. I have been thinking about a few things that have been said, and I see a way to alleviate many of our problems. I believe, Naruto, that you should seek for your council Senju Tsunade, one of the 3 legendary Sannin and my former teammate. Many eyes rose. Did you not say you did not expect her to come back? Someone said. Jiraiya nodded. True, but I meant specifically as Hokage. As a counselor, we have a better chance of getting her back here. Danzo looked at Jiraiya. And you wish to go and spend weeks, if not months, in finding her? His phrasing only confirmed Jiraiya's fears. Jiraiya shook his head. No, I wish to take the Hokage and for us to go and find her. That surprised many of the current council members. Danzo spoke out again. That is highly irresponsible, Jiraiya. Letting the new Hokage travel out, not yet strong enough to defend himself fully from the threats of this world. Jiraiya countered. I do not wish to send the Hokage out haphazardly, but with a purpose. As his sensei, I will be able to fully train him during our search, making him much stronger than he currently is. And yes, I will use the techniques you suggested earlier, Danzo-san. It will enable him to get the real-world experience you fear he is lacking, Hyuga-san, while giving us an important tool to convince Tsunadeheim to return. She cannot reject the direct orders of the Hokage, now can she? Jiraiya had laid out his reasoning, he only hoped it was enough. Kaharu thought about it. You are correct in your thoughts, Jiraiya-san, you are forgetting a few things. Once the shinobi world finds out the Hokage is a 13-year-old ex-genin, not even a Sannin will be able to stop the people who will come after him. And, whomever the young Godem selects to be on his council is his choice, not his sensei's. Jiraiya turned to Naruto. Would you mind if we didn't tell anyone about your selection as Hokage until after this mission? Naruto began to struggle mentally with the concept of people not knowing he was Hokage, but eventually gave in. Sure, Ero Sannin, but why should I get her for my council? Why can't I pick from the people I know? Jiraiya sighed. Look, Naruto, I am suggesting her for two reasons. 1. The people you know, well, they aren't really that experienced enough to put onto the council. You don't simply want your friends, but people with different ideas and attitudes. He motioned to Danzo. Like Danzo and the Sandaime. They had different philosophies of how to do things, but the Sandaime kept him on the council because of that very reason. Tsunade, with her vast experience and knowledge of the lands due to her travels, does this perfectly. And secondly, I will not always be here to watch and train you, since my spy networks are vital for the safety of this village. So, I want to have someone I know I can trust here to help watch over you. Naruto absorbed it in, and it made sense. Okay, Ero Sannin, let's go find Tsunade to help me be the greatest Hokage ever. Jiraiya gave a smile at his enthusiasm. Good to hear, Naruto. This means, for the next month or two, you have to keep silent about being Hokage, until you get back. Jiraiya turned to the council. That means for all of you. Not a word must leak out about Naruto here being selected Hokage. He needs to train in both his shinobi and political skills before this is known for his and Konoha's safety. He turned to the elders. That also means, for Konoha's safety, you should refrain from telling him the Hokage-only secrets. Danzo and the others understood what was meant. In case something should happen to Naruto, the secrets of Konoha could be kept from the grasps of enemies. A council member asked, who will lead Konoha when our Hokage is on this mission? I do not think we can continue meeting, as it may arise suspicion on why we have not voted in a new Hokage. Surprising everyone, Naruto came up with a plan. You guys can say the Hokage is getting special training before he is announced, and you guys, he motioned to the three elders, can run stuff. And I guess Shikamaru too, since I probably want him on my council. He is really smart and stuff, and would probably like not having to go out and do missions. And he knows what I would want, so that works, right? Shikaku was surprised that his son was being put on the council by the Hokage, but he guessed it made sense. It would also help counter some of Danzo's possible policies. Hiyashi was grateful that there was a counter to Danzo, whoever inefficient that might be at the moment. And Danzo was annoyed that the council was being filled upon spots with people he did not really want to work with. However, as he knew well, the Hokage's word was absolute. Soon, there was an agreement on the plan, as it made sense for Konoha. Suddenly, Kakashi got up and whispered something in Naruto's ear, much to Danzo's chagrin, and nodded. And I want reports every week sent to me and Ero-san Jiraiya about what is happening. Naruto stopped himself from calling his second sensei by his given nickname as he realized Hokages didn't call people by nicknames like that. Which meant calling Sasuke Ateme was out too. Being Hokage was really hard. And he didn't even get to the paperwork. Naruto nearly shivered thinking back to all the paperwork on Gigi's desk. Danzo lifted an eyebrow. Oh, how will we do that? You do not know the Konoha's code system yet. Naruto shrugged. Well, Jiraiya will have to tell me what it says, and he can teach me it. Unable to counter that logic, Danzo did not respond. There were a few looks around before a Junin spoke. I think, just to be safe, we should have someone go with the Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sama. You know, someone that we can trust to help them in case something happens. Someone strong. Another Junin nodded. Yeah, I think so too. Murmurs filled the room agreeing with the statement. Eventually eyes turned to the Hokage. He was surprised by the looks. What? Why are you all looking at me like that? Sasuke shook his head disappointed. Because, Hokage-san, Sasuke dealt with facts. Fact was, Naruto was the Hokage. Another fact, though, was that Hokage or not, Sasuke could still almost definitely kick his ass. You're the leader of the village. So it is up to you to decide if you get another escort for the mission. Naruto nodded his head. Oh yeah. He quickly went into a thinking pose, trying to figure out if someone should come with him. It made sense, you had to protect the Hokage, but he wasn't sure if Konoha could afford to let go of a shinobi who could actually protect him. He remembered enough from Iruka's classes to know the village got most of its money in high-class missions, and the village needed money to rebuild. He turned to the council he inherited. Is there any shinobi that can help us with that? I know we have to make money and stuff to rebuild, but is there anyone we can spare? Kaharu and Hamaru looked at each other and shook their heads. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, but the village has no one that they can send on a long-term mission for no fee at this time. Kaharu explained. Naruto sighed, but then Danzo spoke up. I may be of assistance. Though they are not shinobi per se, they are bodyguards that I have trained in the shinobi way to help protect me and my family. I can afford to let one to help your cause. Jiraiya knew exactly what Danzo was talking about. Root, his own personal Anbu that should have been disbanded years ago. You know, Danzo, it is highly unethical to train people in the art of shinobi and not have them be a part of the village's active roster. Danzo looked back at Jiraiya. Perhaps, but I want to feel safe. My injuries have made me less able as a shinobi, so I required the best to teach me. And hiring private guards is cheaper than paying for a full-time mission. Jiraiya glared at Danzo, wishing he could force him to slip up, but knew it was little use. The man was too goddamn slippery. He turned to Naruto and hesitantly asked, "Would you want one of Danzo's?" He gave a quick glare at the man once again. "Personal bodyguards to escort us on this trip?" Naruto turned to Danzo. "Are they strong? Like really strong?" Danzo simply nodded. "Of course. If I wanted to train someone to protect me, I would want them to be as strong as possible. Perhaps I could train you sometime." Jiraiya quickly shook his head. "I do not think there is any need for that, Danzo. Between me and Kakashi-san, I believe we can handle Naruto's further training quite well." Naruto was confused at how Jiraiya was handling the man. He was being very protective of Naruto and not trusting the man with anything. Shouldn't he be nice to him? I mean, he was the main reason that Naruto just got voted to Hokage. Wasn't he a friend? Well then, Danzo-san, sure. I would love one of your personal guards to help protect me. Naruto enthusiastically told him, much to Danzo's pleasure. Very well. I will have them waiting for you when you leave. Great. Jiraiya growled, knowing he had to deal with some rude brat while he was looking for Tsunade, as if that wasn't hard enough. However, it was a good idea to have someone to help protect the kid if Akatsuki decided to make a move, so Jiraiya wasn't going to fight it any further. He nodded in compliance. That sounds wonderful. We will be leaving tomorrow at 9 a.m. from the North Gate. Will that be an issue? Danzo shook his head. Not at all. In fact, I am surprised it isn't earlier. Naruto shook his head. No, that sounds good. We can actually eat first before we go. Jiraiya nodded. Exactly my reasoning. Naruto began to look around at the Grand Council and that they were doing nothing. He decided it was enough. I guess, since we figured out everything, meeting dismissed. The people looked around, unsure if that was appropriate. Naruto luckily realized their confusion and turned to Danzo. Unless there is some reason why they need to stay. Danzo again shook his head. No, you are right, Hokage-sama. He directed his attention to the crowd. You heard Hokage-sama. Meeting dismissed. At that confirmation, most of the people left the room. Among the ones remaining were Nara Shikaku, Hyuga Hiyashi, Sasuke, Jiraiya, Sarutobi Asuma, Kakashi, and the elders. Naruto was surprised that so many people were still there. He understood the elders and Jiraiya and Kakashi and even Sasuke, but not the other three. What are you guys still doing here? He motioned to the three anomalies. Hiyashi bowed slightly and spoke. Hokage-sama, I know it was ruled that your selection be kept secret, but I wish permission to tell certain members of my family. Naruto raised his eyebrow. Like who? Hiyashi calmly replied. The Hyuga Council, and possibly the heiress. Naruto had a sudden realization. You mean Hinata? Why do you want to tell her? Hiyashi paused for a moment, and continued. I wish to tell my heiress, and the council for that matter, because I had told them I would seek the position you are in. I must tell them about my failings, and wish to enlighten them on who beat me. Naruto scratched the back of his head, and turned to his inherited advisors. Is that a good idea? Kaharu turned to Homura, who simply shook her head. No, it is not. There is no need for them to know who is Hokage before everyone else. Naruto nodded at the advice. Yeah, so, I have to say no Hyuga-san. Sorry. A look of frustration graced the Hyuga face, but quickly passed. I understand. He bowed again. Good day, Hokage-sama. The Hyuga left the room quickly. It was Asuma's turn to speak to his father's successor. He didn't bow, but gave a nod of his head. You know, Naruto-sama, of all the kids in Konoha, I think you were the best to name Hokage. But I need to ask you something. What is it? Naruto asked him politely. Well, I was wondering how my team would work with Shikamaru on the council. I was wondering if you were planning to replace him, or another option. Naruto scratched his nose. I didn't even think about his team. He gave Asuma his grin. Sorry about that, Asuma-san, but I have to get back to you on that one. Shikaku interrupted. If I may, I want to ask if I should go retrieve my son so he can be aware of these developments. I do not believe you are aware of this, Hokage-sama, but someone can refuse to be on your council. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, that makes sense. Could you fetch Shikamaru Nara-san? Shikaku nodded. Right away, Hokage-sama. With that he left the room. Asuma decided to wait around and hear the verdict. Sasuke decided to talk to him now. So, Hokage-san, what will happen with our team? You can't exactly go on missions with us, because of your duties and all. Naruto thought about it, and his face brightened. He turned to his advisor, Danzo. Hey, Danzo-san, you said you have guards and stuff who are trained, right? Danzo uneasily nodded. Yes, I do. Is there any our age that can join in on my team to replace me? It would be really awesome if you did. Danzo's eye widened. He had a perfect opportunity here to do a long-term goal, and there was no way he would let it pass. In fact, I do. I will have him join your team tomorrow for practice. After he registers as a shinobi. Jiraiya darkly said. Danzo simply nodded. Yes, after. Naruto just smiled. That's great. I don't see anything else we have to do besides the Shikamaru thing, right? Kaharu nodded. That is correct, Hokage-sama. Naruto was happy to hear that. His first day on the job, and he hadn't messed up yet. Sure, it had only been like 20 minutes, but still it was a lot to him. Great then, Naruto happily exclaimed. So you guys can go when I talk with Shikamaru. The elders raised their eyebrows. Should we not stay to help talk to him? Naruto shook his head. No, cause, I want to talk to him in private while I tell him the stuff about me. I don't know, I really don't like talking about it in front of people. Before the elders could say anything, Sasuke surprisingly stepped in. There is no point arguing. Hokage-san is really annoying if he wants something. Naruto frowned. I'm not annoying. He heard coughs come from both Jiraiya and Kakashi. He glared at them for a moment, and exclaimed, Bah! With both of you. So please leave me alone so I can prepare myself. The elders, especially Danzo, were hesitant, but listened. Soon the room was almost cleared save for Jiraiya, who looked at his student, knowing what he was really doing. He was more dealing with all the information he had learned than preparing himself to tell Shikamaru. He sighed, almost feeling the boy's confusion, but let him be. Jiraiya would need some time alone if he found out all of what Naruto learned. With that he sighed, waved to boy, and closed the door shut, leaving Naruto alone in the room, to think to himself. Mentally, Naruto was a mess. Between being ecstatic and shocked about being named Hokage, the surprise of finding out his mother was just like him, the joy his hero was his father, and the pure rage that his father had sealed the Kyuubi inside of him, Naruto had no control over his mind. He tried to prioritize. First thing, Hokage. I'm Hokage. Naruto promptly stood up, and did the most ridiculous dance he could think of. He was shaking his hips, doing fist pumps, extreme headbanging, shuffling, doing the disco, and at one point River danced his joy out. He even summoned a horde of clones to put on the shoulders and carry around, cheering for him. With the joy out of the way, he turned to the next thing he had to digest. His mother being a container. He sighed for himself, finally feeling connected to his mother. Hyuga-san had told him they acted a lot alike, and she had red hair and purple eyes. She also knew the burden of holding the demon inside of her. He had a random thought that he liked. Next time he was in the sewer that was the seal, he would ask the Kyuubi about his mom. It would probably know her best, right? Before Naruto could even begin to contemplate anything to do with his father, he heard a knock on the door. Who is it? Nay, what a drag. It's me, Shikamaru with my dad. He said I had to talk to you. Naruto nodded, before realizing Shikamaru couldn't see him. Good, come in. Your dad too. Naruto added as a second thought. He would probably need someone to help convince Shikamaru he was actually Hokage. Shikamaru opened the door slowly, and dragged himself in, his dad following. Shikamaru gave a glare at Naruto. Why was I dragged here to see you? I was watching clouds in perfect peace until my dad dragged me here. Naruto smirked. You shouldn't speak to your Hokage like that, Shikamaru. It is not right. Shikamaru gave a snicker. You, Hokage. Unlikely as me marrying Ino-san. Shikaku cackled, much to Shikamaru's confusion. What's so funny, dad? He managed to get a grip of himself. When's the wedding? Your mother would like to know. Shikamaru gave his dad a strange look, before realization hit him. He turned back to Naruto, back to his father, and back to Naruto. You weren't joking, were you? Naruto shook his head. You're the Hokage? Naruto nodded. Shikamaru sighed, and made his way to a chair. You know, Dad, I think I know why you drink now. Shikaku laughed at that, and turned to his leader. Do you want me to hang around, or? Naruto cut him off. No, it's okay Nara-san, you can go. With that, the Nara clan leader left, leaving Shikamaru and Naruto all alone. So, how the hell did you get voted Hokage? Shikamaru bluntly asked. Naruto shrugged. I'm not really sure. This Danzo guy nominated me apparently and convinced enough people that I was the best person for the job. Shikamaru simply nodded. He must be a really good talker. I heard my dad talk about him before, and I thought he would want to be Hokage. Naruto shrugged. He is all bandaged up and stuff, so maybe he is too weak to do it? Shikamaru looked at him funny. You realized you were just a genin this morning. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Yeah, well, I have a lot of potential. And Jiraiya is going to train me really hard when we leave the village to find the last person for my council, some chick named Tsunade. Shikamaru raised his eyebrow to that information. Tsunade? You mean the Sannin, the great medical ninja? Naruto absently nodded. Yeah, I guess. Shikamaru sighed as thought about something. So why am I here again? Naruto smiled. Because I want you to be on my Hokage's council. Shikamaru was surprised by that one. You want me on your council? Naruto nodded enthusiastically. How come? Well, I know you are really smart and will do anything for the village. You are good enough to be considered a chunin already, so I thought you would be perfect. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes at the offer. What about Team 10? I can't abandon Choji with Ino. That would be cruel, and he is my best friend. Naruto tapped his fingers on the armrest. I don't know. I was hoping you could think of something. Shikamaru sighed, and went into his thinking pose. Naruto wanted to interrupt, but realized what Shikamaru was doing from the Chunin exam finals, and kept quiet. Shikamaru broke from the pose. I suggest letting my father substitute me on this council while I do some missions with them, while they complete others with either Sasuke or Sakura filling the 4th spot. Naruto shook his head. I already filled my old spot. Shikamaru raised his eyebrow. This quickly? Naruto nodded. Yeah, that Danzo guy's trains personal guards like shinobi, and he is letting one go to become a real shinobi and replace me. Shikamaru raised his eyebrow at that knowledge, but didn't say anything on it. Well, I am sure there are other genin that can fill the spot as needed. Naruto agreed with that. There were hundreds of genin Konoha, they could surely find one to help them out. Yeah, so will you do it? Shikamaru sighed. Sure, I'll do it. Naruto gave a big grin. Great to hear. I know I can count on you. Then, surprising Shikamaru, his face turned serious. Now, I think, I have to tell you a few things about me you need to know if you are going to be my counselor. He had gained Shikamaru's full attention, a rarity in his life. Firstly, I am the container of the Kyuubi. He gave Shikamaru a moment to absorb that fact. He just nodded. Makes sense. Go on. Naruto was floored by Shikamaru's response. He had sort of expected him to reject him, but then Naruto realized this was Shikamaru. He was smart enough to realize what it meant, and it would probably be too troublesome for him to shun Naruto, so it didn't really matter. Secondly, I'm the third container of the Kyuubi. The first was the wife of the first Hokage, and the second was the wife of the fourth Hokage. Shikamaru was more surprised by that fact, but suddenly had a grin. Doesn't that mean you were supposed to be the wife of the seventh Hokage? Naruto's eyes bulged. That's not funny, Shikamaru. Shikamaru simply shrugged. Was to me. Naruto shook his head, showing his annoyance, then took a big breath. Finally, I'm the son of the fourth Hokage. Shikamaru gave a real smile. Figured that one out last week. Thanks for confirming it. Naruto's eyes bulged twice as far as last time. How the hell did you figure that out? Shikamaru just shrugged. You look exactly like him. I'm surprised more people didn't figure it out. I was kidnapped at birth and reported dead. It was safer for the Yondaime's son to stay that way. Shikamaru nodded sympathetically, while Naruto continued. And you have to keep this silent until I get back with this Tsunade lady, when they name me Hokage in front of everyone. Shikamaru nodded. Understood. Anything else? Naruto looked around nervously, and took a big gulp. I also want your help planning something. Planning what? Naruto's eyes turned purple at the ferocity of the statement, making Shikamaru flinch. He knew immediately why Naruto would want such a thing. He had to let the words sink in. War on Otogakure. It was 8:55 a.m. at the North Gate, and a lone person stood there, the secret Godem Hokage, Uzumaki Naruto. He was only mildly surprised that he was alone. He had expected Jiraiya to be late for this, probably a hangover from his activities from last night, but he expected that guy trained by Danzo to be here already. He leaned against the station house guarded by everyone's two favorite guards, Izumo and Kotetsu. So, brat, mind explaining what you are doing right now? Kotetsu asked him sternly. Naruto sighed. Cause I'm heading out with Jiraiya-sensei and some other guy that was trained by Danzo. We are on a mission to find sensei's old teammate, Tsunade. Their eyes bulged. The legendary Tsunade? How come? Kotetsu asked. Izumo gave a little dough and grinned. Is she going to be the new Hokage? Naruto snickered. As if. We are getting her for the Naruto remembered the excuse Jiraiya had told him to use. We are getting her to make up for all of the medic nins we lost during the invasion. They nodded in understanding. All in all, over 25 high-quality medic nins lost their lives. A huge blow in a village with an admittedly subpar medic training system. How much longer do you think you will be here? Izumo asked him. Naruto shrugged. No clue. It's almost 9, and there is no sight of that guy Danzo sent or of Jiraiya-sensei. Kotetsu then made a notice. Hey, didn't you have that awesome nickname for Jiraiya-sama? What was it? Ero-sanin? How come you aren't calling him that? Naruto nervously laughed. Well, cause Jiraiya told me that a Hokage has to be professional and stuff, and I need a head start on it, right? So what? No more pranks, no more painting the Hokage monument, or anything like that. Izumo questioned him. Naruto had a frown. I haven't done a prank in months. But yeah, pretty much. Kotetsu pouted. Shame. As much of a pain in the ass it was to chase you, you were pretty damn funny kid. Naruto smiled. Thanks, Kotetsu-san. A silence filled the air as Naruto looked up at the clock. It's 9 o'clock, where are they? Shin here, Hokage-sama, reporting for the mission. The voice surprised Naruto and made him jump. It also startled Kotetsu and Izumo. Naruto quickly whipped around. He saw a gray-haired kid, a little older than him, with jet-black eyes. He stood a few inches over Naruto. He was in the customary Anbu uniform Naruto had seen on a few of its members, and he saw a Fuma shuriken and some type of sword on his back. Who the heck are you? Shin. I was sent here by Danzo-sama. Suddenly, Shin stopped, and had to think for a moment. Honored San. He tried to cover his earlier mistake in recognizing him as Hokage preemptively. Izumo and Kotetsu failed to notice the earlier statement, and was confused by the second. Why did you call Naruto Honored San? Shin gave a forced grin. Lord Danzo holds him in high regards, thus the name. What do you think I should call him? Naruto cut in quickly. Naruto-san is alright, just Naruto would be better. I will call you Naruto-san then. Where is your sensei, Jiraiya-san? Naruto sighed. No clue. Probably drunk somewhere, surrounded by girls. Shin nodded. I will retrieve your teacher from the red light district. With that, he jumped away. Naruto was surprised. Konoha has a red light district? Kotetsu lecherously grinned. Yeah, and it's really good. For 3,000 ryo, you can have this one girl who, Azumo bopped him on the head. Idiot, he is barely 13. He doesn't need to know any of this. Kotetsu just smirked. You know the saying, old enough to kill, old enough to fuck. Right, Naruto? Naruto had turned the other direction, muttering something akin to, damn perverts everywhere I go. Azumo began to laugh while Kotetsu shot an annoyed glare at Naruto's back. However, Naruto began to tune them out, as he was focused on the conversation he had with Shikamaru the night before. Flashback. War on Otokagore? Shikamaru incredulously asked. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah, cause they are a big threat. They invaded our village once, who is to say they won't again? We should destroy them before they get the chance to hurt us. Shikamaru gave a calculating look. Then why am I not planning war on Suna? They attacked us too, and have before in the past. It would be just as logical, if not more logical, to do so. They were tricked. Their leader was killed. Naruto was quick to defend them. By Orochimaru. Shikamaru simply added. Naruto gave a depressed nod. Yeah, him. Shikamaru sighed. What a drag. I know why you want to do this, Naruto, and it won't work. The Sandaime is dead, and will stay dead. I know that. He yelled at Shikamaru, the pain in his voice evident. I know that. His voice was calmer this time, but still full of pain. Then why war? Naruto began to fidget, uncomfortably. Well, Orochimaru made Otogakure, right? So if we destroy it, it will make him a lot weaker since he won't have a village under his control. And what, Naruto? I asked Jiraiya why Orochimaru got banished from Konoha. He used to do experiments on people, some really sicko-wacko stuff that makes me want to hurl. And Jiraiya said he is probably doing even worse stuff in Otto. Shikamaru nodded. I heard about that too, from my dad. And all of the shinobi, they all support him. They are all loyal to him. They let them experiment on them. Like those guys that tried to kill Sasuke. They are a bunch of sick freaks. Shikamaru got into his thinker's pose. It isn't just to avenge the old man, but save the land of sound from all of their shinobi. Naruto nodded. Yeah, to save them. Naruto quietly added on, but I won't complain if we kill Orochimaru too. Shikamaru could only nod his agreement with such an idea. End flashback. After that, he gave Shikamaru access to all the information he would need to plan such an invasion, war. He talked a little bit more to his counselors and Jiraiya about nothing he thought was that important, ordered about a dozen things of Ichikaru ramen to go, and settled in his house to relax and pack. He knew he had to keep becoming Hokage a secret, so he didn't throw the party he always dreamed of. But he also remembered the old man complaining he never got to relax, so Naruto decided to take advantage of the peace. Sasuke promised to keep Sakura away and explain why he was going, so Naruto was all free. All of a sudden he heard a noise. Hi, Naruto-kun. He turned to see a red-faced Hinata. Hey Hinata, what's up? What Hinata wanted to say was, oh, I'm talking to the boy I want to be my boyfriend, so pretty good. Instead Hinata's red got a little deeper as she ignored her bold wishes and began to mumble. Well, you see, she shook it off. Nothing Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyebrow rose. Even he knew something was up. What is it, Hinata? You can tell me. She pulled at the hem of her jacket as she nodded. She took in a deep breath. Father is mad since they voted for a new Hokage and he lost. Didn't W want to T-train W with him if W was mad. Naruto nodded, understanding. He wouldn't to spar with a mad Sasuke. Though he was annoyed that Hyuga-san did not take his loss well. Naruto was afraid that they might not like him as Hokage, which would be, in Shikamaru's words, troublesome. Well, hopefully he won't be mad for too long. So what are you going to do today? Hinata's face kept up the redness. Train. She turned her face slightly to the ground, as not to look him in the eyes. If you want Naruto-kun you can train with me. She stuttered out her request harshly. She knew Naruto loved to train, and hopefully he would accept. She knew she needed to be bolder to get the wonderful blonde, and this was a great start. It was tough, but Naruto could understand it. He frowned. Sorry Hinata, I would love to, but I have a mission. Shin is getting Jiraiya-sensei, and then we are leaving. Hinata frowned. Who's Shin? I am. Shin suddenly popped into a space near Hinata, making her jump slightly, with a large, grumpy Jiraiya over his shoulder. Okay, kid, you can put me down. Jiraiya grumbled. Shin promptly let him down, leaving Jiraiya to huff and puff. He was fully prepared, as Shin had given himself enough time to grab his bag and toad summoning scroll, but still mad since he was pulled away quite forcefully from a lovely woman he had met at a bar the previous night. He threw on his bag and scroll, and glared at Naruto. Why the hell did you send him after me? Naruto shook his hands wildly. Not me. He wanted to start the mission, I just told him what you were likely doing. Shin nodded. Yes, enjoying rest after fornicating with an ugly woman wearing lots of makeup. Naruto's eyebrows twitched wildly. Jiraiya nearly died laughing at the social awkwardness of the boy, and tamed the rage that came from deep inside of him at the insinuation he would ever be with anything less than a 7. 6 if they're twins, and Hinata came very close to fainting out of sheer embarrassment at the thought. She began to sway, but was quickly caught by Naruto. Hinata realized this, smiled, and fainted out of the simple joy of being in the arms of her crush. Naruto was surprised by this reaction, and began to try and shake her awake. Hey, Hinata, Hinata, you okay? Hinata. Jiraiya was done brushing himself off and looked at the kid. Come on Gaki, leave your girlfriend alone and let's get going. Naruto let out an odd sound showing his irritation. Hinata isn't my girlfriend, she is just a friend. He looked up to Izumo. Hey, Izumo-san, can you watch over Hinata until she wakes up? And tell her I said bye. Izumo nodded, so Naruto set her against the guard station and got up. Let's get going. Naruto began to take huge steps as he left through the gate behind a grumbling Jiraiya and silent Shin. After a bit of Naruto's awkward marching, Jiraiya became annoyed. Naruto, stop that now. It is really annoying. Naruto stopped entirely confused. What? You're marching, it looks ridiculous. Oh, whatever then. So where to, Ero Sanin? As long as he was Hokage, Naruto would not call people by inappropriate name, like Ero Sanin and Teme. But until then, he was going to have his fill. To a little town a day's walk from here. It is where we are sleeping for the night. Okay, then, let's go. Naruto began to run in the direction they were headed, but was suddenly cut off by an odd-looking sword. He turned to see who had the sword, friend or foe, and saw it was Shin. What the hell, Shin? Sorry Hokage-sama, but I did not want you to step in the dog feces. To the point, a pile of dog crap was right in the way of Naruto, right where his foot would have stomped. Naruto wiped his brow. Phew, thanks Shin, you saved me. He stepped around the crap, and took a few steps but stopped. He turned to Shin, who hadn't moved. Shin, what did I say about calling me Hokage-sama? It is Naruto, not Hokage, from now on. Shin nodded. Of course, Naruto-sama. Naruto growled. Naruto. Not Naruto-sama. If you really need the honorific, use San. Okay? Shin again nodded. Of course, Naruto, he paused, correcting himself, San. Naruto gave a weak smile but decided to let Jiraiya catch up. He let Jiraiya take lead, while he followed and Shin covered the back. They quietly walked this way for a few minutes, before Naruto began to complain. Hey, Ero Sanin, you said you were going to teach me stuff. Can you start teaching me stuff? I need to become stronger as soon as possible so I can protect the village. Jiraiya sighed. Calm down, Naruto. I will start teaching you things soon enough. The village we are stopping at is in 7-hour walk, so we should be there a little after 4 p.m. We will be able to begin your training then. And anyway, I need to figure out exactly what I will be teaching you. I want to make sure you actually learn stuff. Naruto gave him a suspicious glance. Really? Or are you just saying that, but you are gonna go watch girls or something? Jiraiya shook his head. No, not this trip. As much as I would love to, the training on this trip is too important to let you do unstructured. A perverted grin was shot off by Jiraiya. Of course, you have Shin to help you sometimes, so I might be able to go off a few times. Naruto ignored the last part. So what are you going to teach me, huh? What? You gonna teach me some awesome jutsus? Jiraiya nodded. Yes, I will be teaching you a few good jutsus. Probably 3 or 4 of them, not counting the big one. The big one? Naruto was asked, liking the sound of it. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, I will also be teaching you a very special jutsu, one that your father invented. Naruto's eyes went wide. A jutsu the fourth Hokage invented? His thoughts on the man may be complicated, but his belief that his dad was a total badass was not shaken. It would be really awesome then. What is it? What is it? Naruto impatiently pleaded. Jiraiya gave him a big grin. The Rasengan. The Rasengan? What does it do? Naruto wondered, thinking it sounded cool. Shin made sure not to look too surprised, but it would be an impressive feat for the future Hokage to master. Jiraiya smirked. Well, I could explain it, but that's boring. It would be better for me to just show you. He motioned for them to follow him off the path and at a tree. Jiraiya took a deep breath out, and held out his right hand. Suddenly, a blue ball formed out of thin air, contained in his hand. It spiraled magnificently, and one could feel the power emanating from it. Then, he thrust the glowing ball at the tree, yelling out, Rasengan. He pushed the ball into the tree, which quickly carved into it, throwing bark and wood out in random directions. And as soon as it started, it stopped, with Jiraiya letting the move dissipate. The tree now had a huge hole in it, and was incredibly less stable than it was before. Naruto's eyes were really wide. That move was totally awesome. It kicked so much ass. Even Shin was intrigued. Jiraiya-sama, was that pure chakra? I could not detect any elements in the sphere. Danzo-sama had speculated once in his presence that the deadliness of the move came from the use of elemental chakra infused with it. Naruto's eyebrow rose. Pure chakra? Jiraiya nodded. Yes, it is. In fact, Minato-san could never manage to infuse elemental chakra into the Rasengan, which makes it an incomplete jutsu. Naruto's jaw nearly hit the floor. Incomplete? You mean it could be stronger? Jiraiya nodded. Of course. Even you should realize that elemental chakra is much more powerful than pure chakra. Though this move is very powerful itself already. Shin could not help but fear what a fully recognized Rasengan could do to a human being. Naruto was very anxious and wanted to learn that move now. He held out his hand, trying to summon the chakra. Bits and pieces of chakra began to manifest, before Jiraiya grabbed Naruto's wrist. Hold on, Naruto. You just can't go and do this technique. It takes a lot of practice. It took me 6 months to learn it, and it took Minato a few years to make it. Naruto frowned. I don't have years. I don't have 6 months. I need to learn it now. Jiraiya shook his head slowly. Calm down, Naruto. You have some time to learn it. This isn't a week-long mission. It will probably take us at least a month to find her, a few days, then we have to convince her, then we have to go back. Might take us up to 2 months to finish this, though I'm hoping to less. Shin rose his eyebrow, not expecting the mission to take that long. Lord Danzo had said a few weeks, but Jiraiya was doubling that estimation. He wanted to argue, but Lord Danzo had told him not to draw attention to himself from Jiraiya, so he held his tongue. But if it took you 6 months, how am I supposed to do this in only 2? And what about all those other cool jutsus you are going to teach me? How are we gonna do all that? Jiraiya gave a deep chuckle. That? Why, that is only the half of it. I still want for you to master the basics katas in taijutsu, introduce you to a new fighting form that I think you are gonna love, help you with all the problems that come from genjutsu, show you a thing or two about seals if I can, and teach you manners and political etiquette. Naruto's jaw dropped. How are we going to do that in 2 months? That sounds like it would take years. Jiraiya nodded. I doubt years, but it would normally take a considerable amount more time than we have right now to teach you all the things I think you need to know before you even think about wearing that hat. However, Kami was kind to us when you choose Kage Bunshin as the jutsu you picked from that forbidden scroll. Hun? What do you mean, Kami was kind to us? I know Kage Bunshin is awesome and all, but how is it going to help us? Naruto naively asked him. Jiraiya grinned. Because, as awesome as Kage Bunshin are, you have only been using them half as well as you could have been. Naruto had a confused look on his face, but Jiraiya continued on. Look, I could talk until I was blue and you still might not get it. So Naruto, summon a Kage Bunshin now. Surprised by the order, Naruto quickly popped one into existence. Jiraiya grabbed the clone by the arm and left to talk in the woods with it, but not before telling both Shin and Naruto to stay. Once he was out of sight, Naruto began to complain. What does that baka know? I use my Kage Bunshin awesomely already, what he can show me about it that will make it any better? Shin knew enough about the jutsu to know what Jiraiya was showing Naruto. Pay attention. You are about to find out. Naruto looked to Shin in confusion, and was about to say something when he was stopped by his gaining the memories of the clone, an experience he had ignored previously since it had told him nothing and was thus ignored by his brain. This time, however, the brain registered it. Then Naruto registered it. You damn pervert. What do you mean me and Hinata could make the next great Icha Icha novel? She is a good friend of mine, and I won't let your super perverted mind do anything to mess with her. Naruto began to gasp for air after his yell when he realized something. Wait, how did I know what he said? Naruto pondered it for a moment, and before Shin could explain, Naruto came to the conclusion himself. Wait, when Jiraiya destroyed my clone, did I get its memories? Shin simply nodded in confirmation. Does that mean I get all of my clone's memories? Shin nodded again. Then why the hell did I notice this before? I use the technique often enough. Jiraiya stepped back onto the road as he began to explain. The mind works in odd ways. If you see something, gaining memories of seeing it any different way are ignored since they conflict with the image currently seen by the eye. However, if the brain gains memories of things it does not see or remember entirely, it will remember these new memories and store them within itself. You have only been using them in the first way, so your brain never picked up on it. But Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was developed as a spy technique meant to get a man on the inside, get the info, dispel, and let the user know everything. Your chakra supply managed to make your version of the Kage Bunshin, an endless stream of foot soldiers, quite formidable. However, these two things will help us a lot. Naruto followed Jiraiya down the road, deep in thought, trying to comprehend what he just learned. So, if I get my clone's memories, I gain everything it knows. Jiraiya nodded as Shin was curious if the boy was capable of figuring this out. Shin had heard, through rumor, that while the boy was quite impressive with on-the-field strategy, he was a dunce in the education department. He thought, perhaps, Danzo knew otherwise than believed the rumors, but Shin was curious who was right. Lord Danzo, or the village gossipers. One should never doubt Lord Danzo. So if I train with them, I get their memories? Naruto more asked than anything. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, so you will be able to train in multiple things at once. Naruto grinned. I'm gonna learn everything in a week with the hundreds of clones I can do. Believe it. Jiraiya was quick to dispel that notion. No way. There is absolutely no way I am letting you train with anywhere near that many clones. Naruto was confused. But if I have a lot of clones do stuff at once, I will remember the stuff faster. Jiraiya nodded. While that is true, thinking that way will get you killed. The brain is very sensitive, and cannot handle an overload of information. If you were to have your clone hordes try to dispel all the information they learned, the mental stress would most likely kill you. On top of that, your brain is still developing since you are still growing, so the threshold you can take on a daily basis is far below how many clones you can do. Which is? Naruto asked. Somewhat depressed he would not be able to become stronger fast enough to destroy Sasuke when they got back. I would be comfortable with about 10 or so clones learning thing. Maybe up to 15 with some of the lighter stuff I'm going to throw at you. Naruto looked depressed, but that was short-lived. Naruto-san, do not look so sad. Even with 10 clones learning everything, you will gain almost 2 years worth of experience in 2 months. Shin logically explained to Naruto. Naruto thought that was awesome, but Jiraiya weakened it. Maybe not 2 years worth with the off days we will do for traveling purposes. But I think the 12 to 15 months worth of experience is still pretty good, don't you agree, Naruto? Even with that downgrade, Naruto thought that it was awesome. He couldn't wait to make it to the next town, to begin his training. Without warning, he shot off, followed by a neutral Shin and a frustrated Jiraiya. 2 hours after Naruto left and Hyuga Hinata recovered from her fainting spell, Kotetsu and Azuma were on a semi-vigilant lookout while having a simple talk between themselves. So, do you think the Uzumaki kid was telling the truth about not getting Tsunade for Hokage? Kotetsu asked, ever the gossiper. Azuma shrugged. Maybe, but I doubt it. Only thing we know for sure is what the Hyuga girl said, that the Hyuga clan leader lost his bid for Hokage. Who the hell else is there? Sure as hell ain't me. Kotetsu grinned, since he was in the know. I heard another rumor when I was in the Junin room yesterday. Apparently, the Uchiha and the Uzumaki kid were invited to the council to pick the Hokage. And they say it was to be character witnesses for Hitaki Kakashi. Needed someone who had been with him lately. Azumo shook his head. Why do you always slip into the Junin room? Because that is where the rumors are at. What do you think, copycat ninja as Hokage? Azumo simply shook his head. It would never work. The guy is so laid back he can be used as a part of the road. Not to mention he was so late to his own funeral they rescheduled. Kotetsu fell on the ground laughing so hard at the joke, totally unexpected from his straight man best friend. Azumo shook his head, trying to get his body off the ground, leaving the gates unguarded for a matter of 10 seconds. It was all Kisame and Itachi needed. They quickly slipped in, the guards meant to stop them, or even slow them down, ignorant of their very existence. They donned their hats and walked casually to a tea shop Itachi would frequent before his execution of the Uchiha clan, talking casually along the way. So, what do you think of Konoha? Itachi asked Kisame. Kisame sniffed the air a little bit, and blanched. Too many pansies if you ask me. No one's chakra worthy of Samahata. Itachi nodded. Yes, I'm afraid a peaceful village does tend to bring with it some drawbacks. Drawbacks? This village is fatally flawed if you ask me. They did survive an invasion from Orochimaru and the Shukaku. Kisame shrugged. So? You kicked Orochimaru's ass, though I am glad we are getting this Gaki rather than the Shukaku brat. I don't envy Deidara and Sasori in the least. They casually entered the tea shop Itachi loved, and they ordered a calming chamomile. It would soothe them for the hunt. The guy that was supposed to show up and replace Naruto for Team 7's spot while he was on the training trip did not show, and it got Sakura angry. She had been confused when Sasuke told her about how Naruto was going to find the Sannin Tsunade with his second sensei, the Sannin Jiraiya. She knew that he had been training with some guy he called a pervert, but a Sannin? Then Sasuke clued her in about how that sensei of Naruto's was a giant pervert who wrote the bane of many women's existence, Icha, and any and all respect for the man left the mind. In all honesty, Sakura began to believe that they deserved one another. Still, she was angry at the fact that the new teammate never showed up, and began to storm off. When Sasuke asked where she was going, she yelled about super-duper late senseis and teammates. She then explained she was heading to Naruto's apartment to yell at him. She was reminded that he wasn't there. Sakura quickly made up the excuse that she was going to prank the Prank King, and hide all of his precious ramen. Sasuke thought that was harsh, and decided to join in on the fun. It would be good to say to his kids about how he pranked the Hokage someday, when he is the strongest ninja in the village, and had begun to revive his clan. His mind accidentally gave one of his daughters pink hair, ruining the fantasy, so he caught up with his teammate and followed her to Naruto's place. If they had been more observant, they would have noticed the chakra of their new teammate emanating from the tree line. He had decided to observe them on the first day, as he had not really interacted with many people outside of his brother Shin since he began serving Lord Danzo and had forgotten many of the proper ways to act. He had picked up a book on human etiquette, and saw a section that suggested giving nicknames to friends to help establish bonds. He didn't get why he just couldn't call them Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno, but the book said it would help them connect, one of the things Lord Danzo had oddly stressed on this extended mission. The ninja finished his shading on the picture he had just drawn of a random duck. He did not know where the inspiration came from, it had just happened. He admired his work of a duck bending over to get food in a pond when he saw it. He noticed that the duck's rear end eerily matched his teammate Sasuke's hairstyle. So should he call him Duckbit? He thought about it, but shook off the idea. The book had suggested a playful element to the name, and he had realized the Uchiha would not be humored by that name. So he decided to form another, keeping the duck motif. He was searching for a characteristic of a duck to use, when he remembered the sound it made. Quack. Could he call him that? It didn't sound right, it sounded too stiff, and the book said playful. Quacky, then. Then he turned his attention to the female, Sakura Haruno. She was very loud, and quick to anger. Her pink hair stood out, and her forehead was noticeably larger than other people's. He wondered what would be a good, playful name for her. Harpy, Bubblegum, and Billboard came to mind, but they seemed too simple. He wanted it to be unique. Then he thought about the entirety of her, and realized he was put back by everything. She was too loud, in every sense of the word. She was not attractive to him, though he could understood how some could find solace in her appearance. He was just inherently repelled by her. He came to remember the Chunin exams, where he had been among the Anbu who was securing the facility. He saw the fight between the Hokage-sama and the Hyuga branch member, and remembered the technique he used to stop all of the Hokage's advances and keep him at bay. Kaden. He found the other nickname for his teammates. Sai sighed. He wondered what Quacky and Kaden would nickname him. As they marched up the stairs to the place known as Naruto's apartment, Sasuke couldn't help but laugh. The new Hokage lived in this rather poor section of town. He had been in Naruto's place before, and the Hokage's office was just as big as it. He then tried to focus in on the mumblings of his most tolerated fangirl. Damn Naruto, I'm gonna hide all the ramen in your mattress. I'll cut out the spring, and pack it with the ramen. You don't have a bed, and your stupid precious ramen will be wasted. Sasuke raised his eyebrow, impressed with the ingenuity of that little plan. If it wasn't for the fact Naruto would end up being moved into some well-guarded and high-end mini-mansion, he would totally back the plan. He would help her anyway. If they were lucky, he would just take this mattress and put it into his new place. And it will hide all the ramen from him when he gets back. He sighed as Sakura began to look from door to door. She turned to Sasuke. Did Naruto live in 2B or 2C? 2C. Sakura looked at the door. You sure? Sasuke nodded. Remember that stupid song he taught us, so we remembered where he lived. It's not very hard, you see. I live in little apartment 2C. Sakura remembered that and sighed. Oh yeah, she had bopped him in the head especially hard for his terrible singing. That was the closest she had ever brought him to the hospital, which she was proud of in an odd way. Not that she was hurting him. The baka usually brought it on himself, but that she was strong enough to hurt that orange tank. Knowing Naruto, she reached for the doorknob and turned. As she expected, the door had been left unlocked. Again, she sighed as she swung the door open, muttering to herself, I swear, he is going to get mugged someday. She looked up and gasped. Sasuke was confused by her gasp, so he walked behind her and looked over her shoulder. Standing there, caught red-handed going through Naruto's personal effects, were two people. Both were wearing odd black cloaks that seemingly consumed the people beneath. The black cloaks were colored by blood-red clouds. The first person's skin was blue, oddly enough, and he seemed to be carrying something on his back. The other was lanky, and was actually almost oblivious to the intrusion. Almost. Hello. The voice was hauntingly familiar to Sasuke. It set him on edge. And that is when the two people looked at their guests. Sasuke knew he was screwed. By any definition of the word, screwed. He saw his brother there, the man he needed to kill, simply 10 or 15 feet away from him. He wanted to make a move to kill him with his Chidori, but it wouldn't work. He was too far away, and if he moved, his brother could end him. He knew the curse seal could boost his chakra to help him, but he had to worry about his troublesome teammate to cover, and the other man with his demon-incarnate brother. He forgot his name, but his skin, size, and sword made it clear to Sasuke that he was one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. And if he recalled, this one was even more dangerous than Zabuza. 2 of the strongest individuals in the world, and they had encountered them breaking into their teammates, the future Hokage's home. His eyes grew wide. Did they know? If his brother was after him for some reason, the Dobi was screwed. Sasuke thought very hard of a possible escape route from these men, as he knew he would die if he fought them, and fairly quickly too. He had a plan that could work, but it was something out of the Uzumaki playbook, so he went with it. He slammed the door shut, and gave in to the power of the seal. Jiraiya had grown tired of Naruto's constant begging of teaching him to Rasengan, or any other of the cool techniques he was going to learn, and had found a basic exercise for him to do. It was simple really, but perfect for Naruto. He had grabbed a leaf off of one of the numerous trees, and handed it to Naruto. Now, we both know your control really sucks. I mean sucks. I know you learned a few things to help it, from Kakashi-san and myself, but I want you to a little more practice. I want you to be able to keep this leaf stuck to your hand no matter how much you move. I don't care if you are swimming. You need to be keeping this leaf stuck to your hand. Naruto whined. Both that sounds so stupid. Why don't you show me a Kaden jutsu or something instead? Jiraiya gave a glance to the boy. What is chakra made of? Naruto gave a surprised look. What? I said, Gaki, what is chakra made of? It is the mixture of our, Shin began to recite, but Jiraiya stopped him. Not you, Danzo brat. I meant Naruto. What is chakra? Naruto went back to his memory bank to remember that information, and recalled the day when Team 7 had learned how to walk up trees. Chakra is the mix of physical energy and spiritual energy in one's body. He recited from his recollection of Sakura's mini lesson. Correct. This exercise builds the spiritual energy, which you currently lack. It isn't your fault. Spiritual energy takes time to build. To best use one's chakra, one needs a balance of the two. And as far as I know, chakra control exercises like this are the most efficient ways to build spiritual energy. Naruto just nodded, feigning complete understanding. Jiraiya realized this and sighed. Do it, and you will be able to begin learning the Rasengan and you will be able to beat the Uchiha into dust. Really? Why didn't you say that in the first place? Naruto grabbed the leaf from Jiraiya and immediately stuck it on his right hand, and focused his chakra there. Jiraiya sighed, praying it would keep him quiet. However, the quiet one spoke up. Is it just me, or does he seem stupid? Shin stated to the toad sage. Jiraiya shook his head. No, he doesn't seem stupid, he is stupid. Hey, I heard that. Get back to work with the leaf, Gaki. Jiraiya yelled back at Naruto. If he is stupid, then why did Lord Danzo wish for him to be Hokage? Shin asked. Jiraiya knew he was on a slippery slope here, as he couldn't really say what he wanted to say about Danzo, but he knew the kid wouldn't trust him if he lied. Normally, that didn't matter, but Jiraiya didn't want to let something slip that let Danzo take more control over Naruto than he would get from working with him. I am only telling you these things because you know of his Hokage title, understand? Shin nodded. Naruto here is the container of the Kyuubi, which gives him massive chakra reserves, incredible healing, and sturdiness and stamina like you couldn't believe. He is also the son of the 4th Hokage, giving him lineage. And on top of that, Naruto would die for this village, and would protect everyone in it, even the ones he doesn't like. Though I think it is still way too early to make him the Hokage, I really didn't see many other people I would want to be Hokage that hadn't already declined the position, so I ended up voting for him. Shin still didn't understand, but you said it yourself, he is stupid. How can expect him to become anything? Naruto growled, but Shin ignored him. When I say Naruto is stupid, I mean as of right now, hey, but he won't be forever. He can learn, he just never really had focus before now. And Naruto is the type of person who learns through experience really well, and not through a book. Kind of like me, he. Jiraiya chuckled. Shin slowly nodded. I believe I understand. His potential is limitless, it just has not been cultivated. Right, wouldn't it be wise to train him with Lord Danzo, however? He always trains us to our maximum potential. Jiraiya sighed. How is he going to explain this? Your Lord Danzo way of teaching usually involves elimination emotion, am I correct? Shin nodded. Lord Danzo teaches us that emotion will hurt us in the long run as they cloud our judgment. Jiraiya nodded, as he figured as much. This will not work for Naruto, as he needs his emotions, as that is how he best operates. His emotions are his drive to succeed. Taking them away would take away Naruto's drive. And that won't help, will it? I suppose, you are, right. Shin hesitantly agreed. I know I am. And speaking about knowing, if you are here to help protect Naruto, I think I should get a grasp on your techniques. So, Shin, what fighting style do you use? Black Wolf style, Jiraiya-sama. Black Wolf? I'm not familiar with that style. What does it consist of? Black Wolf teaches us to first disable the limbs of our opponent, forcing our opponent to block with them and be crippled as a result. Then, with the help of devastating punches or kicks, one finishes off a crippled opponent. Sounds brutal. Brutal it might be, but Lord Danzo said he found it most efficient. I see. What of your chakra reserves? And your control with them? Upon my examination yesterday to see if I was fit to protect the Hokage-sama, I was judged to have high Chunin chakra reserves, coupled with mid-Chunin chakra control. Quite impressive for a bodyguard, Jiraiya leadingly remarked. Bodyguard? Shin asked, confused until he recalled what his lord had told him. Perhaps, but one would doubt a civilian would attempt to breach Lord Danzo's home. Only an over-arrogant shinobi of some standing would think they would have a chance against us. Jiraiya trained him well, but he was surprised to see that the kid showed a few emotions. He was surprised that Danzo would let an unbroken agent out on such an important mission. What Jiraiya didn't realize was that he needed an agent that could gain the trust of the new Hokage, and an unemotional tool was not up to the task of performing such a mission. What about the sword on your back? Are you any good with that? Shin almost looked insulted. Of course I am. Lord Danzo demands talent with the blade. My talents with the tanto earn praise from Lord Danzo. My ability to defend is the best among his men. Shin boasted, proud of himself. He knew pride made him weak, but he couldn't help it. It came naturally to him. What about attack? Still quite exceptional. Jiraiya was getting a good feel on the kid's capabilities, but he needed to know more in case the Akatsuki made a move on Naruto. What of your genjutsu abilities? Shin frowned. Unfortunately, they are somewhat lacking. I can dispel them, but I only know a few minor ones. Lord Danzo thought it would be better if I worked on my control of my Fuma Shuriken. What do you mean, control on a Fuma Shuriken? Shin had a proud look on his face. I have some talent with chakra threads, and Lord Danzo utilized this by having me learn how to control a Fuma Shuriken completely during its path of flight. I can do the same with Shuriken and Kunai, but it is much more effective with a Fuma Shuriken. Jiraiya was surprised by such a route, but then he realized it was Danzo covering a kid's weakness. He had a strength in close combat, but not in long-range affairs, and his Fuma Shuriken control fixed that. Hate the man all you want, Jiraiya thought to himself, but he makes a complete ninja. What of your ninjutsu? I have a few earth techniques I have learned, but most of my training has been on taijutsu and kenjutsu until recently. He was almost apologizing for his focus on such, but Jiraiya was happy enough with the kid. Solid abilities and not a total tool. This kid had hoped to break free from Danzo. If he could only help him along. Damn it, Leaf. Get back here. Or a certain blonde Gaki. With Sakura out of the picture, Sasuke needed a plan to stall his brother and the swordsman long enough for the help Sakura was sent to get would come. He figured, out of everyone, Kakashi had the best shot of dealing with them. He knew Kakashi could defeat a swordsman of the mist, and he was also pretty sure Kakashi could hurt Itachi enough so he could go in for the kill with Chidori. He didn't really want to have to get help, but the sooner his brother was dead the better. And every moment Sasuke wasted standing in front of Naruto's closed door was another moment that they could escape. Sasuke then reared back, and with a chakra-infused kick, sent the door flying off its hinges at the duo as a distraction. Simultaneously, he threw for 2 kunai at each person, based on where he last remembered them standing. Neither thing worked, as Itachi simply sidestepped the door and the swordsman used his sword to block them. That not working, Sasuke headed for the swordsman. If he could disarm him, he had a better shot of survival. Feinting a punch, Sasuke used the momentum to try to roundhouse kick the sword away. The swordsman easily saw through the feint and plan and caught the roundhouse kick with his foot. He then tried to throw into the wall Sasuke, but Sasuke managed to spin and land on the wall, using the tree walking skills he had learned. Sasuke pulled out a smoke bomb and threw it between the middle of the two, who were mildly surprised by the tactic. He peppered the smoky area with shuriken and jumped in, Sharingan active, into the smoke and began to elegantly swing through the smoke with his last 2 kunai. One for offense, one for defense, he systematically cleared the possible area in the smoke where the two of them could be. By the time the smoke faded away, Sasuke had swiped through it all, getting nothing. He saw the reason why, as both men had jumped out of the smoke. Taking a breath of fresh air, Sasuke glared at the man considered his brother. "Why are you in Naruto's house?" The swordsman laughed. "None of your business, brat." He then took a good look at the kid and was surprised. "Hey, Itachi, how does this brat have the Sharingan? I thought you killed your entire clan." Itachi responded, "No Kisame, I left one alive. Meet my little brother, Sasuke-chan." Sasuke growled at the name, but was cut off by his observant brother. "And I see my brother has met Orochimaru." Sasuke's eyes flashed in confusion, and his hand subconsciously reached for the seal. "How did you know?" "Sasuke, you are not the first Uchiha Orochimaru tried giving the curse seal of heaven to. He tried a few years ago with me, but I scared him away. I guess he went to the scraps of the clan. I won't be the scraps when I kill you, Itachi." Sasuke growled. Kisame laughed. "Hey, you kill Itachi? That's real likely, brat. You got the same chance of that happening as I do becoming Cage. It doesn't matter what you think. Die, Itachi." Sasuke charged his brother, and a battle of taijutsu took place. Sasuke tried throwing a punch to the face, but Itachi shifted his head. Sasuke went for a shot with his left to his ribs, and Itachi slapped it away. Sasuke went for a kick to his knee, but he just flexed it away from the blow. Sasuke began to throw a volley of blows, aiming for the body or face of his brother. They were all simply dodged, or if to his sternum, Itachi blocked it with a slap. It was all done to humiliate his brother, and Sasuke began to draw chakra from the seal. He then threw a punch to Itachi's chest, but was stopped by Itachi's left-handed slap. Surprising him, Sasuke grabbed the wrist, and threw a punch with his other arm. Itachi tried to slap it away, but his right wrist befell the same fate. His hands occupied, Sasuke sent a chakra-infused jumping knee to Itachi's jaw, hoping it would break. As it connected, Sasuke let go of the hands, and watched Itachi fly into table, crashing through it. Kisame was surprised by the turn of events, and Sasuke was happy from his success, but his smile fell as Itachi casually stood up and dusted himself off. He spit out a little bit of blood, but otherwise seemed fine. His jaw hadn't been affected much, as he began to speak. "Weak, brother. You are still far too weak. I could have killed you at any time. Even when you did get in a blow, it lacked power. You lack hate, little brother. Without it, you will never defeat me." Sasuke growled at the lambasting of his talents, and charged in at his brother. He threw his left fist hard at Itachi's face, but he simply caught the fist. Using his superior strength, he made Sasuke buckle to his might. He forced Sasuke onto his knees, and had bent back his wrist. "You lack the hate needed to kill me. Perhaps you need a reminder?" With that, Itachi activated his Mangekyo Sharingan and caught his little brother into the dreaded Tsukuyomi. He had planned on forcing his brother to relive the massacre of their clan, but before he could begin his torment, Sasuke vanished. Confused, he deactivated his Mangekyo Sharingan and saw a poof of white smoke. Which meant that little brother copied Naruto's Kage Bunshin. "This makes things interesting," Itachi told his partner. Kisame grunted. Flashback. After Sasuke let the power of the curse seal activate, he threw his hands together into the clone seal, and quietly muttered, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." With that, two other Sasukes popped into existence. Sakura's eyes went wide. "Sasuke-kun, when did Naruto teach you Kage Bunshin?" Sasuke was a little exhausted from use of chakra, and was panting lightly. "He didn't. I copied it in practice by accident. I would use it more, but it takes a lot of chakra out of me. The only reason I can summon two and not be wiped is the extra chakra the seal gives me." He turned his clones. "You," pointing to the one on his left, "go to the hospital and get Guy-sensei. Tell him who's here." He turned to the clone on the right. "You, stall." Then he turned to Sakura. "Find any of the other Junin you can, and tell them my brother and one of the 7 swordsmen are at Naruto's apartment. I am going to find Kakashi." Break. With that, the real Sasuke and his Kage Bunshin jumped away, leaving a confused Sakura and the stall clone. He looked annoyed at Sakura for not going. "You heard the head. Go and find some Junin who can help." The clone's command brought Sakura back into reality and got her moving. She jumped away, leaving the final clone planning his assault on the deadly duo. End flashback. With the Sasuke clone, he hopped from rooftop to rooftop, going as fast as possible to avoid any silly fangirls. He looked at the hospital in the distance, and kicked it into high gear. The reason he wanted his help was because of how he had managed to train Lee. Lee was a no-talent dobi, and had been turned into a taijutsu machine. He knew that, if Guy had to be much better than Lee, and also did not have his limitations with chakra, so he probably knew a few strong jutsus. As he landed in front of the hospital, he made a dash for the front desk. The nurse there jumped in surprise when Sasuke flew in and slammed his hands on the desktop and demanded what room was Rock Lee being kept in. She managed to stutter out the room number, and found Sasuke immediately gone from her sight. Lee's room was on the 3rd floor, so Sasuke found the first staircase he could, and leapt up them a flight at a time. He flew into the hallway, and quickly rushed into Lee's room, and was right to see Mighty Guy comforting him. Guy greeted him. "Ah, Kakashi's most youthful student, how are?" He was cut off. "No time for your stupid youth today. My brother and one of the 7 swordsmen are at Naruto's apartment." Lee, from his bed, was shocked at Sasuke's comment. "No time for youth. One must always make time for youth. Right, Guy sensei. He turned to where his sensei had been, but found air. Guy was already halfway to Naruto's apartment. With Sakura, she was scared. No, scared was back when she had to deal with those Otto nins in the Forest of Death. She was petrified. Sasuke's brother? The one that killed his entire clan? And a seven swordsman? Like that Zabuza guy Kakashi defeated? They were in the village? And in Naruto's apartment? Why? She was so filled with questions, she nearly forgot her mission. That was, until, she was Ino Pig and the rest of Team 10. Realizing they might have their Junin with them, she jumped off the building and landed in front of them to their surprise. "Where's Asuma-sensei?" she asked them quickly. "Not here, what do you need him for?" Billboard brow. Ignoring the insult, she turned to the smart one. "Do you know where he is?" Shikamaru sighed. "Probably with Team 8 at Ichikaru's. They usually go there for lunch." With that information, Sakura left. Ino was frustrated that she couldn't find out what Sakura needed Asuma-sensei for, and was very curious how Shikamaru knew where Asuma was. "How did you know he would be there, Shikamaru?" she almost screeched in his ear. He sighed. "Troublesome. Hinata gets Team 8 to eat there so she can watch Naruto, and Asuma goes there to watch Kurenai-sensei." Ino was surprised. Why would sensei spy on Kurenai? Choji stopped his eating as he explained. "Same reason you do it with Sasuke, Ino-chan. He likes her." Ino grinned at the new gossip she just learned. Sakura had located Ichikaru's and burst in, scaring those eating there. Asuma-sensei, Kurenai-sensei, Sasuke-kun's brother and one of the seven swordsmen are at Naruto-san's apartment. With that news, both left like a rocket. Ichikaru wasn't even going to complain about them skipping out on their tab, as he was worried about Naruto too. He had fed enough ninja and heard enough stories to know how dangerous both men must be. If he was worried, there wasn't a word for Hinata's feelings. She was quivering in fear for her precious Naruto-kun. They were after him? Why were they after Naruto? The only thing that kept her from going hysterical was her knowledge in his safety out of town and with a Sanin. With the real Sasuke, he needed to get Kakashi-sensei. He would deal with the swordsman. And whoever Sakura got would help. Guy was so fast, Itachi could catch him with the Sharingan. He would hurt him, bad. Then Sasuke would kill him. It wasn't the way it was supposed to happen, but it was the way it would happen. Itachi would die, and his clan avenged. He headed to the spot where he figured Kakashi lingered for hours and was the reason he was always late. He headed to where they had become genin, and to the memorial stone they were shown. He was right, Kakashi was there. "Sensei, I need you help." Kakashi turned to Sasuke and saw the mark active. "Sasuke, what did I say about us?" He was cut off. "Itachi's here, with one of the seven swordsmen." At Naruto's apartment, Kakashi let the curse of heaven go as he leapt to Naruto's apartment to cut off the duo. So, he thought to himself, Akatsuki is making its move. He had learned about the group from Jiraiya last night, and when you combined the fact he was Hokage, it was a shitstorm waiting to happen. No time to lose, then. He told himself, and he went full speed to the apartment of his sensei's son and precious student. Sasuke was quick to follow, as he did not want to miss the chance of killing his brother. The memory of his clone hit him then, and his fight with Itachi was the thing he focused on. He had called him weak. He had acted like it was nothing. He was going to show him nothing. The dark haze of chakra surrounded him as the seal's power came into full force.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.